Good evening. We'll call the special board workshop of February 2nd to order. Secretary, please call the roll.
Leonard, absent. Terza?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Strand?
Here.
Brier?
Here.
Gonzalez?
Here.
Hall? Absent.
All right. I have all my stuff over there, but
Yeah.
it
We
looks
have
like
a few presentations
few
tonight.
presentations. I'm sure Ray will be here momentarily, so we'll just go ahead and get started.
We'll start with professional development since that one is queued up. So feel free to take it over. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here. Can you hear me okay? I can't tell if it works. Okay. So I'm here to share with you some statistics about our teachers' attendance at professional development this year so far. We keep these statistics for a couple of reasons. It shows us our areas of teacher interest so that we can support them, but it also reveals to us when we're done with the professional development and we're ready to move on so that we can be financially responsible with our investment. So what I have for you is a lineup of the different initiatives that we're supporting with professional development, starting with balanced literacy. We also have our math curriculum rollouts where the teachers receive their newly written units. We have the Danielson Domain Academies, which are after-school sessions and have been provided on SIP days as well, to give teachers more understanding and comfort with the Danielson evaluation framework. We have been expanding our body of teachers and administrators who are learning about understanding by design as a framework. We've had admin and teacher teams attend, as well as a session for teacher leaders. And we've had breakout days to focus on essential questions and assessment as they pertain to understanding by design as well. Although Common Core is built into a lot of the professional development that we do, we have also these Common Core kind of mini academies that are presented by teachers. We know that it's very powerful for teachers to learn from other teachers. So we had one of those in the fall, and we have 3 more planned for the spring. I've worked with Tom and Mark also to provide administrators with some professional development opportunities supported by the district as well. We've sent principals to Illinois ASCD sessions of their choice. And I also put together a little kind of catalog for them so that they don't have to go out and search for things. I did the searching for them and put that on SharePoint for them to access if they wanted to look for something. I've worked with the curriculum technology facilitator to develop a program for the tech teachers in the elementary and middle school levels. We are working to build their familiarity with the technology integration standards and help them work with classroom teachers for integrating into the curriculum as well as their work with students in the lab. And finally, with science, we've had a couple of workshops. We're going K through 12 with building awareness of the next generation science standards that are up and coming. And we've also had STEM scope support for the kindergarten teachers. That's a side-by-side program that they use. I have some breakouts of the attendance at balanced literacy professional development. And what you'll see is that these statistics represent only from August of 2014 to the present. And so it does not include past participation. Some of these, like I said, are kind of at the end of their cycle. And so you might think that the numbers seem a little low, but that's because everybody's done it, which is a good thing. It'll tell you here the percentage of teachers from each building that contributes to the total number of teachers who attended. So that's what this looks like. For Words Their Way, we're finishing up with the grades 3 through 5 teachers. We had our last 135 go through. These were either teachers who hadn't previously been trained or teachers who were new to the district. So we had 135 of those at grades 3 through 5, and then we added Words Their Way at 2nd grade at the request of the teachers who wanted to get into this program and have some more support for their students in learning vocabulary and spelling. So we had 28 teachers come to those sessions. All of these were during the day. So one consideration that we have when we offer professional development during the day is getting substitutes for all the teachers who wanted to attend. So sometimes we have run into problems with that, and so numbers may seem low in that way as well.
So before you change the screen, so when I looked at this, I was, well, thinking it was pretty low. So you're saying that all the teachers in the district have over time, all the teachers who should have had this have had it?
And at grades 3 through 5, yes. And then grades 2, we just started it, so it's brand new. And then we did, this is a specific instance where we did run into substitute issues.
Okay.
I guess with 135 teachers to sub for.
Not all at once.
Ah, okay,
Okay.
okay.
No, we limit our daily sub-requests for professional development to 24, because there are
okay.
other things, too, that require subs, so we've been given that number by Human Resources, and we try to stick to it the best we can. Phonemic Awareness and Jolly Phonics are two programs that we offer for K-1 teachers, and these are lower numbers. You'll see with a substitute issue, this is a half-day program, so that complicates the matter even more. It's difficult to find subs to come in for just half a day, and although we've tried to encourage them to share within their building, sometimes the logistics of that just don't work out. But it's also because we are at the end of offering this phonemic awareness and Jolly Phonics. They have been offered in the past. So two things that are contributing to the fact that these numbers may seem low. Big three are the first 3 of 6 comprehension strategies that we use in the Balanced Literacy Program, and we started these with the K through 2 teachers. This is the end of the cycle for K2, so we had 34 teachers left, and they are moving on in this spring and summer. We already have planned with the other 3 to make the big 6. And that's what this slide represents. With our new program called My Learning Plan, I was able to generate these reports that show us current and future enrollment instead of just looking at the past after teachers have gone through. So that's a really nice addition that this program allows us to do. So the grades K through 2 teachers who are now moving into those the third 3 strategies of the Big 6, 69 teachers had already signed up when I created this last week. And then for Big 3, now we're introducing that to grades 3 through 5, and 63 teachers have already signed up. So that's very exciting. We actually even had to expand our Saturday sessions because they were filled at 30 with a wait list. So we opened them up to 50, and we still have people enrolling. It's very exciting. These are also after-school sessions. I put out a survey in December and asked teachers, among other questions, when they wanted to have professional development, and one of the answers was that they did like the after-school sessions. They did want the opportunity to come on a Saturday so that they didn't have to be away from their students, and then in the summer as well. So that is how I planned the Big 3 and Big 6 that we're offering now, and then in addition we'll have during contractual hours in the fall for those teachers who prefer that option. And the final balanced literacy offering that we have is Right Tools. This one is a little bit different because this one is offered K through 8. And again, this is the end of the informative explanatory. Many teachers have already gone through this, and we've received feedback from them that they are ready and eager to move on to the narrative training that goes through Right Tools as well. The math unit rollouts are all after school, so the statistics for these are going to look a lot different. And these statistics are all inclusive because they started in August of 2014, so I have all the information on these. What I'll show you is the average building participation over the 2 to 3 rollout sessions that have occurred so far, and you'll see that average of teachers who participated in a rollout over the total number of teachers who teach math at that grade level. So for example, in kindergarten, the breakdown in the pie chart tells you how many of the kindergarten teachers from Rollins came to the kindergarten rollout. Again, these are very small numbers as it's just one grade level. There are 45 total in the district, and we have an average of 20 who are attending the rollouts, again, after school. And what we've done to make up for this being after school, because we cannot require them to come, is our math facilitators are visiting the PLCs to help get them that information in that way. And then we also have articulation team members, obviously, throughout the district who are helping teachers to implement this new curriculum, and also learning from another teacher is a good way to get that information, and they have that teacher lens on it. So these are the kindergarten, first, and second grade statistics.
Let me just ask you, you said you'd offered it 2 or 3 times?
For different units. So the units 1 and 2 were rolled out, and then units 3 and 4, or something to that effect, not exactly. So the average over those is that 20 teachers come. Or
Per session?
Per session, yes.
So it would only take 2.5 sessions for all the kindergarten teachers to get that particular...
Well, if each teacher could come, they've received their curriculum at the rollout. So ideally, we want as many of them to come as possible. If they don't come to the rollout, then they get it delivered through the interoffice mail. So,
Perhaps I can
yes.
add, at the curriculum rollout, basically, so for units 1 and 2, there would be a rollout. And what the math facilitators do, along with the articulation team members who are working on those particular units, what they do is they roll out at that time, and they only roll out those units, because they don't want to roll out too far ahead so that it's always fresh on the teacher's minds. So they roll out the strategies that are used during those units, what happens, the standards, everything that happens during that time, and they roll out also the student information guides to the teachers as to what happens as well. So all of that happens, that if a teacher is not there or a particular building is not represented, then the facilitators can come out to their PLC and say, okay, you didn't have representation, then, can we help you with figuring out, these strategies or what's going on there? Obviously, if a teacher hears it firsthand from the articulation team members who helped develop it, they can say, hey, why did you put that in there, or ask questions. But obviously, since it's after school, we don't require them to attend that. We can't require it. So that's why we offer these other things, so that if a teacher can't be there, there are lots of reasons a teacher can't be there after school, that there are other avenues they can get the material as well. And everything is then published to SharePoint as well.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Dr. Johnson. Okay, so this was kindergarten first and second. The same type of statistics for third, fourth, and fifth. And then sixth, seventh, and eighth. Okay, and the last thing I would like to speak with you about this evening is my learning plan. I'm very excited to have rolled out this new program. It is wonderful. It streamlines our in and out of district professional development requests. We now have a district catalog where I can add things, and teachers can get automatic email notifications. It's really great. We have the ability to have any form that our district uses created in this electronic format, so it's kind of like shopping online for your professional development. Makes it very easy. It allows the building administrators to track what their teachers are signed up for and what they've completed in the past, and we're looking into the possibility of doing an import of previous years' information as well. So like with the Big 3 and Big 6 reports I was able to show you for who's signed up for future things, then principals could keep an eye on, oh, hey, I would like to encourage so-and-so to go to this one, and they can see who's signed up and not, so we can be more proactive about signing up for PD. In addition, it gives the teachers a really nice way to store all of their professional development activities in one place. They get their CPDUs through there as well, so everything is electronic and can be kept there forever and ever. And it gives us really great reporting capabilities for, the administrators, so that I can create reports for you, and also for the State Board of Education that I have to turn in as well.
Is there a minimum CPDU that teachers need every year?
Yes, it depends on their licensure and what they're assigned to do. In general, I can give you that classroom teachers need 120 hours over the 5-year cycle of their license. And administrators have requirements as well, and so on and so forth. But yes, and that's required by the state.
And are there additional requirements or specifications laid out in the teacher's contracts, or is it purely just what is required by the state, and then above that it's kind of optional?
I believe that in the teacher contract right now, the only requirements for professional development are for new educators, and I think Nancy Bradish could speak to that better than I could, but I believe that is the case right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dr. Johnson's up next.
Dr. Johnson and friends.
And friends. If you could introduce all the friends for the board before we...
I would be very proud to introduce my
Great.
friends tonight.
Thank you.
I thank you for your help. So by way of introducing my friends that I have with me tonight, last night when the beautiful snowstorm was upon us, I was thinking about, oh, well, gosh, if we have a snow day tomorrow, what will happen? And then, of course, we had a snow day, and I started to think, well, okay, so my colleagues that I have with me tonight, none of them have to come in on a snow day. They are not 12-month employees. And so I thought, okay, well, I don't expect them to come in, and that's fine. I'll just do the presentation myself tonight. But I should have known better, because the dedication of this team is absolutely amazing. And 18 inches of snow and slushy roads and, and cold cannot keep such a dedicated team away from bringing this proposal to you tonight. They are here in full force to bring you this on behalf of our students, on behalf of our staff, and on behalf of the content area of social studies. So I am more than proud to introduce them to you tonight. This is Chris Heath. He is our social studies facilitator who works out of the ASC office, serving grades K through 8. Kelly Hills is the division chair for social studies at our high school. And then you will be meeting some of our other social studies curriculum council members who also braved the roads and the weather to come out tonight in support of the proposal that everyone has worked on very hard for a long, long time. And you will see that in the work that we're presenting. And as I was all excited about telling you that, I wasn't getting out my little cheat sheet. Okay. When I came to the district, one of the first things that the board charged me to do was to put together a series of, or a schedule of curriculum renewal. And when I thought about doing that, I did a needs assessment of the content areas, and social studies quickly became the first core area to target. The graphic that you're looking at there really signifies the tip of the iceberg of all that social studies represents and all that students experience in the social studies classroom. In our ever-changing world, in our global society, it is absolutely critical that students understand what civic education is about. It's critical that they understand that listening to the news, looking at the world around them, understanding what's going on in the world around them is very important. It's not just something that their parents do. It's not just something that, adults do when they get older. It's something that they need to do, they need to act about. And this is the new face of social studies. This is what we're creating in the adoption we bring to you tonight. To share more about why social studies is important is Social Studies Curriculum Council member Jay Shapinski, who is a social studies teacher at Simmons. Jay?
I am very excited to be here. I'm glad that you're able to listen to me. How excited? I live 35 miles away. I spent an hour digging out a neighbor stuck in the alley, and I swear I wasn't going to make it, but here I am. Why am I here? Because it matters. I live 35 miles away. I've been here for 14 years, and this is my second home, and so this matters. And so I'd like to share a little bit about why I feel it matters, and hopefully you'll agree with me. So around 10 years ago, No Child Left Behind changed the way teachers taught. High-stakes testing in reading and math forced changes nationwide, and we at East Aurora, we were no different than most districts across the country. We devoted more time to reading, to writing, to arithmetic. Scores went up, but many argued we didn't improve enough. There weren't enough resources to make it work, and new changes needed to be made. Here we are today. Those changes are here in the form of Common Core and new high-stakes testing called PARC. Our elementary school teachers continue to make great strides with our elementary students, but something else unintended happened along the way. In my 14 years at East Aurora, I've seen a marked decline in my students' understanding about the world and the people they share it with. Too many of my students think that the United States is a continent, or that Mexico is part of the United States, or even that the Middle East is a direction. And that's a problem. They don't realize that there are other religions and beliefs around the world shaping the world we live in right now. While we know reading is critically important, I implore you to not forget how important the social sciences such as history, geography, and sociology truly are. Is it important for people, especially young ones, to understand how the world, the nation, or community came to be? Do you want our youth to understand the value of citizenship and become future leaders of our nation and the world? If you answered yes to any of these questions, we believe you will see how this social studies curriculum adoption will help our staff bring social studies alive for our students. History shows us that individuals with great conviction can change the world. Each time a person stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lives of others, he or she sends out a tiny ripple of hope. Those ripples build a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Now that's a quote from John F. Kennedy, and I am by no means John F. Kennedy. But I do sit here before you, along with my friends in the Social Studies Curriculum Council, to tell you we believe this new adoption will be the ripple of hope for our students to learn and, in turn, change the world for a better place. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Thank you. The second charge from the Board of Education when I came is to ensure that our curriculum is standards-based. You are well aware of ELA and math being Common Core. You're well aware of the next generation science standards coming in as far as what happens with the implementation of those. But now I want to introduce you to the C3 frameworks, which is the next piece in terms of making sure that our curriculum is standards-based. The National Council for the Social Studies is the origin of the C3 frameworks. They worked on those standards for over 3 years to ensure that the social studies are really, really teaching what's meant to be taught in such a way that Jay just explained, so that it's really important, really significant for our students. Then, in accordance with Public Act 98-0301, the state entered into what the governor and the state superintendent is calling a State Task Force on Social Studies. What the result of that task force was that we are to revise our social studies standards to ensure that students have the knowledge and skills and attitudes, they even mention the word attitudes, to become competent and responsible citizens. This task force also said the following that they want to happen in social studies. Students are to think critically about issues that affect their communities. Students are to understand the political process, and they are to be socially responsible and can problem solve about how to contribute within their communities. That task force, because they wanted those things, is including the C3 framework into what will happen in the state of Illinois. I want to also add that at one of my meetings for the Kane County curriculum directors, they mentioned that they had a little tidbit of information that February is the month that the C3 frameworks will be adopted by the state. So we'll see if that happens during February, but that's what Kane County is understanding. We have been, over the last year now, we have been already working on the fact that the C3 would be implemented. We believe strongly in the C3 frameworks. So that has been our foundation of our work. It will continue to be the foundation of our work. We believe strongly in them. So let me tell you just briefly about the C3 frameworks. They contain 4 dimensions, and just in a nutshell, basically these dimensions are known as the inquiry arc. Now, our curriculum in general, anytime we do anything with our curriculum, we really want it strongly based in students being students who inquire about their world, whether it be science, whether it be ELA, whether it now be social studies. We want students to ask why. Why does that bird fly this way? Why do people do that during that time and that age? Why did the revolution occur? We want students to ask why. The C3 frameworks demand that this occur. And that is what our new curriculum will demand, that students be the originators of these questions. Dimension 1, the students independently develop these questions. They say, what do I want to know? What do I have as a question about the world around me? The second dimension is they start to gather information that will help them to learn about the question that they have. The third part is they dig into those resources and dig into that evidence. That's no different from what we do in ELA with our text evidence. So it's not different for our teachers in that respect. There's a lot of alignment with the ELA Common Core standards. That's the beautiful thing. There's a lot of connection with what we're already doing with understanding by design, with the essential questions. So that's a lot of good. Our teachers won't have to learn an entirely new concept when you look at the C3 frameworks. And the last part is answering the question in a way that takes informed action on the part of our students. Once again, going back to what the governor and the state superintendent asked for in that task force, is we want our students to do something with what they learn. Not just memorize that this happened in 1849, but to look at a picture and say, why did that riot occur, and what can we do to make sure these things never happen again? That's the type of learning we want out of social studies from now on. That's the new face of social studies. Also, I do want to mention that we developed a brand new partnership with Northern Illinois University Social Studies Department. We met with them a month ago, I think that was, a month ago to develop this. They are working on the C3 frameworks as well as the Social Studies Department, and we've already started to plan. In fact, I have right here a PowerPoint that has already been developed for professional development that we'll be planning for our teachers with NIU about the C3 framework. So that's already in the works. To make sure that that occurs. And to have this partnership with the University Social Studies Department is a beautiful thing. So moving on to tell you a little bit more about the renewal process and what happened, I kind of feel like, and I was telling the cabinet, it's sort of like planning a wedding. and tonight is the actual day, and so it's like, oh my gosh, we're here. We've been planning for a long time. Back in October of 2013 is when you approved the cycle that says social studies can go first, along with physical education, and you'll hear more about that at another board meeting. We established our council right away and said we've got work to do. During that whole time from 2013 into deep into 14, we reviewed the current status. What does our current textbook look like? What do we do in social studies? In some cases, we found some things we weren't real proud of. We looked at our needs and we said, what is it that we can do to really have social studies come alive for our kids? We reviewed available options, looked at other textbooks, looked at possibilities. We said, do we want to go to units? We said, my God, we can't do that to our teachers, is just go to units. So we had discussions about things. We piloted materials in our classrooms. Then in fall of 2014, we talked to staff again in a different type of way, and you'll hear a little bit more about that survey in a moment. Then this past January, last month, we did an open house with our materials for the elementary staff. We said, come see it. Come see what we're going to be sharing with the board. Come see the leveled readers that come with it. Come look at the technology that comes with it. It's kind of like a last chance to say, if you don't like it, we still have a chance to pull this. And I'm telling you, every teacher that came in, even if they came in saying, I don't know about this, they walked out with a smile on their faces. And they said, oh, we can do this. This will help. Then, just to make sure, we said, okay, maybe you couldn't come to the open house. We're going to send the materials out to the buildings. So we took the books, divided them out, and sent them to all the elementary buildings so every teacher would have a chance to look at them. So that's what's been going on with our process. There are 3 parts of the proposal you're hearing about tonight: an elementary, middle school, and high school part. The elementary involves a textbook series. Middle school involves textbook support and an instructional resource, and the high school involves a course edition and a new textbook that goes along with that course edition. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the elementary proposal. When we did our needs assessment for elementary, we found some things that we knew needed to be changed. In fact, even Sarah and I had a conversation. She came to my office and said, we need to do something about social studies. Our teachers are concerned. And I said, it's coming, Sarah. Hang in there. It's coming. That textbook that we currently have is a 2003 copyright. There's no technology that goes along with it, no resources that go along with it. The teachers are very honest in this district. They'll tell you, we're not using it. It's not a good resource. So we obviously needed to make a change. Part of looking at making that change is the development of the teacher survey I talked about earlier. And another one of our council members, Jeff Simpson, who's an 8th grade social studies teacher at Waldo, is going to tell you a little bit about the results of that teacher survey that tells us we're in the right direction with our proposal tonight. Jeff?
Part of this whole process is actually looking at who's going to be using the materials and asking them what they wanted, and that's why we created a survey. We sent it out to the K-5 teachers, administrators, and we asked them kind of, what are you doing now and what would you like to see happen? 75% of them responded they would like to see a new textbook. A majority of them were asking for things like online lesson plans, resources. With the new series, they have current events, so they can play videos and actually bring more of the world into their classroom. Leveled readers to help those struggling with reading. Spanish support for our English language learners. And one of the other great things, too, is they also got access codes, so they could look at this material, too, and see what it's doing. Okay?
Thank you, Jeff. So we knew when we looked at the teacher survey, we matched it up, we said, all right, what we're proposing matches up with what the teachers are asking for as well, so that's certainly a good thing. So when you look at it, this new series has a technology component, videos, lessons, leveled readers that come with it, all the things that we believe teachers can be successful with. But we also believe it has some other components that are going to make our teachers and our students be successful in terms of their achievement. Jamie Von Hoff, student, social studies council member and fourth grade sheltered teacher at Allen, is going to tell you about, from a teacher's perspective, why she thinks this is the correct choice for our district as well. Jamie?
As a fourth grade shelter teacher, I had brought the materials that you see over here to fourth and fifth grade teachers and talked to them during their PLC times. So the Pearson My World Social Studies, we feel, would be a tremendous asset to our district because it's aligned already to the Common Core. It has literacy instruction and contains content-specific vocabulary that our children definitely need. The students would also be using an interactive work text, which allows them to work with writing and reading within the context of social studies. So the program addresses all the Common Core standards for the writing and informational text and writing. In addition, it's aligned to the Common Core, and as she mentioned, the C3 framework is also embedded within. So each chapter begins with an understanding by design plan. It's already written for the teachers, and it includes an essential question and a targeted reading skill. Due to the activity cards and the technology component, teachers can also follow the WIDA guidelines for listening, writing, reading, and speaking. I think I said those backwards. But the series allows for academic achievement through comprehension questions and encourages higher order thinking also. We feel that this series would enhance not only our students' cultural, historical, and geographical knowledge, but it will also greatly influence our students' growth in the reading and writing.
Thank you very much. So the proposed new textbook, as you can see over there, it does have that technology component that the teachers can use that Jamie talked about. It does come in Spanish, and that has been looked at by our bilingual department as well and endorsed by our bilingual department as well. I do want to mention one of the neat components of it is that the kindergarten copy, the kindergarten version, is going to be custom made just for District 131. They did not have kindergarten in Spanish, and it was going to be a deal breaker for us. We said, nope, all right, deal's over. And they said, all right, we're going to make one for you. So it'll be custom made just for District 131. In fact, we can have a letter from the superintendent in the first page if we'd like to. It will say District 131 kindergarten copy on it. The consumables, since it's not a hard copy, there's a consumable copy for each student, which is nice for the teachers. Students can write in it. There's no annual restock cost for 6 years included in the price. And you can see the cost down there is $550,749.85. The middle school proposal includes an item called the DBQ project. And I don't know if you've ever wondered how barbaric is a barbarian, but our kids will be wondering about that when they take on the DBQ project, which is an amazing addition to what we'd like to include in our middle school curriculum. So I'm going to have Chris, because he's so excited about it as well. Aren't you, Chris? That's it. That's him being excited. So Chris, I'll turn it over to you to talk about the DBQ project.
Sure. Just so we all understand, DBQ stands for document-based question. The series is not only a reading series, but it's also about writing. What the DBQ project does is it presents the students with an essential question. How barbaric were the barbarians? What caused the fall of Rome? And so those are some of the argumentative kinds of things that you can do with it, but they also do a lot of comparing and contrasting. Because of that, it's very nicely aligned to the Common Core standards in the C3 framework, which is all about the argument-based or evidence-based arguments. So what happens is within the series, the students will be presented with a number of documents. They could be primary sources, secondary sources, graphs, photographs, paintings, pictures, anything that's authentic to the subject. And by analyzing all these different sources, the students then go about answering the question. And they answer the question using the evidence that has been presented to them. The nice part about it is that there's really no right answer. It allows the students to make their argument based on evidence. Now, that's a lot of things to throw at some middle school kids, so the other nice part about the DBQ project is that they include in it supports. In fact, they give you two different kinds of DBQ. There's the one that has a lot of supports for those students that are struggling readers and writers, and then they give you a little bit of a pared back one that doesn't have as many of the supports. But even the one that doesn't have all the scaffolding, there are still things within the teacher toolkit that will allow kids to use graphic organizers to give kids support as they need it. And the nice part about that, too, is that it gives very clear instruction to the teachers who may or may not necessarily be reading teachers. It gives them the ability to look through the information first and then use the strategies within the program to teach reading and writing. And what I'm really excited about it is it allows kids in middle school to really start thinking as historians, right? To get in that framework of the C3 framework that has them use that content-based knowledge and content-based skills so they start actually thinking like historians.
Thank you. So when you look at the actual middle school proposal, there are two pieces to the middle school portion. We currently have 2009 textbooks, and we also have the technology portion from 2009. What we're proposing is that we not get updated textbooks. When we did the research to look at what Pearson had so it would align to our elementary adoption, when we looked at their updated textbooks, they were really, the content is the same, the updated textbook. So we said, we're not going to spend the money on getting the updated text, but what we do want to spend the money on, based on how we do the curriculum and what's happening, is to get the updated technology, which far surpasses what we currently have. The teachers would have the updated videos, the updated lesson plans, all of the updated things that go with the content that is the same as what we have in our current textbooks. Saves us a lot of money and gives the teachers the resources they need to teach the same content that's in their same books they have already. Does that make sense? So that's the way we're looking at the proposal for there. So they have the information. The council members that looked at this new technology said far surpasses, that the teachers be very pleased with this new technology. And that's what the teachers were really looking for in the survey results that we got back from the middle school level, is they wanted more resources that way. The DBQ project resources and the PD that goes along with it to help them to use it to their best ability. So when you look at those two areas, the technology cost, the DBQ project, and the PD, the total is $151,408.85 for that. And we believe that's being very fiscally responsible, yet providing what we need for our students to achieve at the middle school level. Moving ahead to high school. At high school, we would like to add a new course to our list of AP courses, and that would be AP Psychology. And Kelly, if you tell us a little bit about what happens in AP Psychology.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to say I've been at East for 12 years, and when I started teaching in the department, we had no AP classes. Since then, we've offered AP European, APUSH, U.S. History, and then American Government and Politics. I was lucky enough to be the pilot teacher for both APUSH and AP Government, and I loved it. And one of the things that so many of the students would ask for, can we get Psych? Can we get AP Psych? And it was one of those things like, we will. Psych is a very popular course at the high school. We offer 12 sections of it a year. Definitely one of our more popular electives. And what AP Psych is obviously going to be hoping to do would be go more in depth as an AP course and what it's asking the kids to do. But it kind of breaks up into the biological aspects of psych, the research methods, and then social psychology. And the goal would be to prepare students to take the AP exam. That is an expectation that all of our students do take that test. And what it is it's really not just a regurgitation of information. AP has really been working at revamping all of the exams that the students are taking. But it would be really into using those concepts and how they affect and it can impact research and experiment within the psychology field. We have had a lot of student interest in this. We've had a lot of teacher interest in it. I think I'm going to have some teachers that might want to duke it out to teach the course next year, which is very, very exciting. So I think this would be a really great opportunity for our students. And we currently are looking at 2 sections that we could run next year.
Yes, we already know that we have student interest for that, so that's a beautiful thing. The textbook is Myers Psychology. It is over there with the other textbooks for the beginning of their mandatory 30-day display for that. So that is what we're asking for at the high school level. So the last part of our proposal, we're in the home stretch here, is of course we need some dollars to provide time for summer curriculum writing. The council already has been working on putting ideas together. We already have resources that they're already using, so we're already ahead of the game in terms of what we would like to do in terms of looking at our curriculum, looking at aligning and integrating also with the ELA units so that the students have a very integrated day. That's certainly an important aspect of any type of curriculum writing. And the facilitators even have already had meetings to take a look at that integration as well. So it's already been started, but we certainly need to look at having some dollars as a line item to make sure that we have some money put together for the teachers to get together and start looking at the scope and sequence for social studies as well, and of course for our AP program to put that together as part of the AP scope and sequence. So in total, and this would be requested, I want to emphasize that, from the FY16 budget. So this would be put in, and Christy's aware of this total as well. If approved, the FY16 budget would be the one impacted by this. The total amount would be $738,278.70 for all of the components of this proposal. Questions?
Very nice presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm particularly excited about the connection with ELA. I've long said that writing is a weaker component in our district, and to be able to integrate that into social sciences too, I think is fantastic. So, nice job.
And I did go on I had no idea what DBQ was. I was telling Carla, I printed it out thinking maybe I could see it, but it was still only yay big. So I went on their website. Very impressive. Just those thinking bullets that they had. And we really do want to produce thinkers. And if you think in social studies, it'll probably dribble over into other things as well. But that goal is impressive.
You know, as we know, all social studies, history is the most language embedded content area. So all the strategies that they're taught through this content area really, really helps the students. And you know, language improves. So we can use it with everything. So congratulations, I love this series.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And Dr. Pop, I think you told me earlier that this is a fraction of the cost of what you expected it would be.
Absolutely. And Dr. Johnson has much more experience in purchasing this kind of material. But what was your original thought when you first went into the project?
I planned on presenting something to you, and hold on to your seats, somewhere around $5 million. Yeah. Okay, so don't fire me. The reason being, and I seriously, in the past, I tease these guys that I'm an old goat at this. I've been central office administrator 11 years, and I've done elementary proposals before, and usually because of the type of text, if we had offered, gotten hardcovers, those are very expensive. But because of the way we're doing this, and because of, we're thinking about it even at the middle school, okay? So, we look into the content. The content's the same. So why would you get the same kind? But the technology is what we want. I think the council and I have done a great job of working together and really researching and being fiscally responsible with this and bringing it down to a manageable cost, and yet meeting the standards and doing what we need to do. So doing right by our kids, our teachers, and our community. That's the way I'm looking at it.
I agree with you. Just by identifying the correct pages, that's it. You'll need a new book.
So
Will we have to replace some? Do we have the amount we need?
if you have to replace some of these,
Uh-huh. No, I mean
Yeah.
the
The
stuff
middle
we
school
won't be
books that
buying.
we're not getting new ones.
Middle school.
well, anything in terms of replacement, like if the building has something in terms of, like, let's say Simmons needed to replace a book, that usually comes out of the book
Oh, the-
replacement, that they take care of. But as we look at that, though, the nice thing about the technology is that if there's some project or something like that, you're going to have all kinds of things at their disposal in terms of how the teachers are teaching. And I was also sharing with Dr. Pop, the way we're looking at social studies now and the fact that it is more research-based, we're having kids do things more in terms of the C3 frameworks, in terms of how they're going to gather evidence. They're going to be less looking up, when did it happen, 1849, who did this? They're going to be looking, why did it happen, and doing their own research on thinking. it's going to look very different. And so I think it's good to have more of a technology base than it is buying more and more textbooks. That's just the wave of how curriculum's going to be from here on in into the future when you start looking in that crystal ball.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank everybody who came out tonight to make that great presentation. Appreciate you coming out. in
They're
this
very
weather.
dedicated. This board can be very proud of this council. All right, if there aren't any other questions.
Thank you.
I was a member of the first council.
We're shifting over to PBIS, Olveus, and some discipline data.
Good evening. I've invited this evening Sandy Sarmiento. She's actually our PBIS facilitator. So a lot of the information that's going to be shared, she's also a part of. And then working with Mark and working with the discipline piece of it. Before we start the presentation and working with Sarah and the union, we have joint committees. And we've actually gone to the point of combining our PBIS and our discipline from this point forward. So we're really focusing a lot on the proactive communications, what those expectations are, and really trying to shape behavior and really learn what those triggers are. So I'm really excited as we move forward in that endeavor to work together. In going through, when we talk about the RTI, you'll hear a lot when you listen to Dave Brusack about the academic piece of it, but the other portion of it is your behavior side. And we still have our Tier 1, Universal, Tier 2, and Tier 3. The goal when the committee gets together, and also when we have our PLCs and the trainings of which Sandy works with, is the idea is if you can impact more the expectations and changing behavior at the Tier 1, you're going to hit more of your students and proactively make sure that they know what those expectations are. A lot of times we say they should know that, but we continually say we need to remind them over and over so they can know. When the universal does not work, because it doesn't work for all students, then we have to get a little bit more specific and a little bit more intense to your Tier 2 and Tier 3. When we look through the core pieces to the RTI approach, focusing predominantly on the behavior end of it, we have to invest time in prevention. And that's teaching expectations and also doing group intervention or individual. Individuals, universal screenings for the students so we can see what type of behaviors. That's also through surveys, which we will go through. And early intervention for students that are not at the benchmark. A multi-tiered, which is your universal, your secondary, and your tertiary, because not everything will work for every student. Progress monitoring. And when you do the progress monitoring, you're using data, and you have to trust the process. You have to allow an intervention to take time to be able to see if it works. If it doesn't work, then you make adjustments, because every intervention does not work for every child. Problem solving is a huge part of it. We have teams in our PLCs, and we're trying to determine what will work for each child so that we can change that behavior and eventually diminish any type of inappropriate behavior that we see. The other part that we do a lot, not only with the regular ed, but with the special ed, is we purchase and we practice research-based practices that have been proven to impact behavior. And we do individual interventions with the students based on needs. You want to add anything, Sandy?
Not yet.
Or Mark?
So far, so good.
No, go through. The part, the tick, is the team implementation chart. And actually tomorrow at the joint principals, we're going to go through that. Each one of the buildings do the tick, and that's feedback. Just with individuals and with teams, you want to look at data as being a way to make improvements, not catching you off guard. But here's where you're at, and just as Jennifer talked about earlier, what do we need to invest time in the future? And it was a great, the data that we'll talk about really has provided us with direction related to that. When you have your tier 1 with any of your implementations, the key part is, are you doing it consistently and with fidelity? If you are not accountable for those, you do not have accurate data. The team implementation checklist is one that's done annually, and the results that you see show you the categories and how we scored on fidelity of implementation. As we looked at this and decided where do we put some of our time and focusing, we noticed that the classroom area is not as heavy. In reflecting with our PBIS group, which is both administration and teachers, we find that in moving forward, a lot of new things have happened, such as your Olveus training as part of new teacher boot camp. A huge part of the teacher evaluation is your domain 2, which a lot is PBIS and expectations. So we think as we move forward, we're going to see this area grow in accountability and fidelity, along with we are starting to do different professional developments also for our administrators, because a lot of times we give those opportunities to talk about PBIS implementation for teachers or team leaders, but we want to make sure we're also providing that support for the leaders of our district at the building level. So the classroom will be an area. And moving forward, there is a BOC, which is benchmarks of quality. That will be another survey that will be coming down that we will be implementing towards the end of the school year, which is an annual. So in saying, as we reflect on data, we also say what will we be adding next to make sure that we're continually looking and reflecting. Some of the big picture challenges that we have, that we focus, is if we have low intensity and low fidelity of the interventions, we're not meeting the social emotional needs. So a lot of that is working with our teams, our PLC, using the discipline data, and just reminding ourselves it's hard work, it's draining work, it's constant work, but you've got to do it with intensity and fidelity, and the kids will benefit when you do that. We also talk about least restrictive and too restrictive settings. So making sure that we want students in the school and learning, but we also want it to be a safe environment. So what's the least restrictive environment that can be used and still keep a safe environment? This is huge, and you've heard of the WARE grant that we received, mental health, and just making sure that we don't forget about that piece of it and what type of mental health problems are out there that are undiagnosed, that as we do the behavior expectations, we really focus on the social emotional needs. The other part that is challenging is changing the routines of ineffective practices. Sometimes you get into a routine and you're thinking you're doing what you're supposed to, but when you look at the research and the practices, there's some things that need to be changed, and those are part of the challenges that we have. Continuing with existing systems, sometimes it's harder than starting from scratch because you have to change patterns of behavior. But through consistency and working with groups and making sure there's buy-in, that comes over time and the students will benefit. Schools and individuals, sometimes you think you're doing it right, but when you really get down and you look at the practices, we aren't doing it with the fidelity we need or as deep as potentially we will. And sometimes that's not the fault of the individual. That's a part of our job to make sure that we educate, train, and support and continually work as a group. Sometimes we have to deconstruct existing approaches and practices and which we use and find out what's in the best interest of students so that they don't become disengaged as a learner because of behavior consequences or strategies that we're using. We also need to make sure, just as in the academic end, that we're truly looking at the data for the purposes they need to, which the ultimate piece of it is to help kids and change behavior. A lot of what we talk about is with the professional development training. Each year, Sandy provides training at the universal secondary and tertiary level. Some of that is refreshers, some of it is for new. We want to make sure as we have turnover in leaders or in staff that we're continuing to have that so everybody's getting the most current information. So that's our training schedule that has been for this past year for the first 6 months. Along with that, after you train, you have to make sure that you have your PLCs in structure. And as we look at these, we have the PLCs for universal, secondary, and tertiary at each one of the buildings. And this is our team leader, where they come together, they learn, they collaborate, they share, they problem solve, and then they go back to their buildings to implement with the leader of their building. There's 3 parts to the school-wide bullying prevention. A question was also asked, what are some of the main things that you see related to the bullying? Working with collecting the data, a lot of what I see from my end of it, from the reports that we get, tend to be name-calling, teasing, has been the most documented from our end of it. A lot of times from the data that I collect on my end, it also tends to be a lot of times at your 5th grade and 6th grade level is the most reported. And that's from the data that I collect related to specifically bullying. When you talk about the bullying approach, bullying is a type of PBIS, teaching appropriate behaviors. So we have to establish a whole-wide school culture. The district has done that through Olveus and through PBIS. And we've been renowned at different institutes and conferences of being supportive of that. It's to be positive and it's to be expected. We do not reward those who bully. Providing training and support for adults, and I just went through the training in the PLC. Along with that, as Mark has had the discipline committee, we've had the PBIS, and we have continual PLCs with leaders. We need to provide direct and individualized support for the students who engage in bullying and the victims of the behaviors. That's not only through administration, that's through teachers, and that's through our social and emotional team to make sure that they are always supported. In the Olveus, we have a year-long commitment. One of the things the staff asked for is guidance in regards to when they should introduce, when they should go through rules, how often they should be presenting the class meeting, which is the nice part through Olveus. It's all laid out for them. It's also online, so every teacher has the capability to access that information very easily at their fingertips. One of the commitments of the district has been to make sure that every staff member is trained and is aware, and therefore, as part of the intake meeting for staff, they get information on what Olveus is, what the bullying rules are, and then what we do is we come back and we do a new staff training. The video is one component of it, but we also have our district trainers come back and do additional information. And hopefully, if we're in Chrome, it's gonna... Maria Kilgore is an instructional technology, and she, along with a couple of our Olveus, hoping this works. This is actually a secured site that we use within our district, and for all new employee trainings, we update it each year with the most current. It's an hour-long video that is played. Let me see if I can, to give you an idea.
Definition of bullying. Share some of the research about the implications of bullying on children and schools. Increase your working knowledge about the framework of the Olveus program that has been adopted by the East Aurora School District. And finally, provide you with some practical skills that you can apply regarding bullying situations.
I put it on the website. I would encourage you, when you have the time, especially if you have an iPad or even an iPhone, just link on it. One of the best things I did on my iPhone is I played it again, and it really becomes something that it helps you know about the program, and also gives you some good ideas on how you as an outsider cannot be a bystander. And that's a huge piece of it that we go through. And then we come back to the RTI model for the discipline piece of it. Any questions on the PBIS or OLS that we went through, or any role that Sandy might work with?
I guess just a general question. I don't know if you could answer this, but how would you say, in general, the teachers in our district perceive this? Is this something just a mandatory, I got to get this done, it takes away from academic achievement, or do they really see this as being kind of integral and part of helping our students increase academic achievement?
I'll answer, and I can let the others answer too. Depending on what level, sometimes it's a little bit more challenging to be able to have the time to collaborate for that buy-in piece of it. So I think you have pockets of individuals who are full buy-in and others that know you need to do it, but there's a little bit of resistance. But oftentimes we come across having those individuals and grade levels that have more time to collaborate, then it's implemented more with fidelity. But each person knows, especially by following your Charlotte Danielson model and evaluation tool, it's a part of an expectation of teachers. And when they see the results of students, that's when their buy-in gets stronger related to it. Sandy, how about you?
I would say in terms of working with the teams and the team leaders, universal team leaders, secondary, and all their teams, either at our coaches' meetings or in our trainings, there's full commitment, there's a full buy-in, there's excitement, they generate ideas, they work hours and hours on celebrations that we don't need to have. So there is a commitment and a buy-in there. Where we are very falling short, quite frankly, is, and I've been doing this for 8 years facilitating, is in our time to continue to educate, to continue to, particularly in the area of our mental health issues. We have high needs in this district, and I know I'm not shocking anyone, and I hope I'm not making anyone uncomfortable, but we need to dig in that area, quite frankly. So it's a little bit more complicated than that, and I know you know that. But I see commitment, and I do see buy-in. But everyone has their pocket of why are we doing this. So to me, that just speaks to a time for educating and training and supporting and helping adults understand what our population of students need.
Could you just expand on that mental health needs? What are we talking about here for our district? Are we talking depression? What are we talking?
You know, I would throw out the state has stepped forward, the state of Illinois at least, and has established a very specific curriculum for social emotional learning standards, and those have been adopted by the state. They haven't necessarily been adopted by schools. You find few practitioners and even college teacher prep programs that are teaching us to be practitioners with social emotional learning standards. So that's something we have to bring online, which OVAS is one such strategy to help with the emotional wellness of our students, as well as the emotional wellness of our staff. So one of the things that we can and will do is continue to look at those state standards and bring online some practices that are common to all of our buildings that will help our staff. So there's PD that's needed. Very few of our staff may have even taken a class that has even exposed them to social emotional learning standards, but they're an integral part of how we know now the science of learning. And emotional wellness is a big factor. And if you look through the history of education, we've come a long ways in what our students are experiencing in our buildings, but we have a long way to go yet. So.
Thank you.
How do you change behavior without changing the environment that the students are in? You know, they spend 6-7 hours a day in our buildings, but they spend the rest of their days in another different type of environment, which they bring obviously behavior. Well, not obviously, but behavior is reflective of the environment that you're in. So how do you make that connection? I mean, so what can you do in 6 or 7 hours that's not undone in the other 14 hours when they're away, whether it's home or socially, their friends, the other environments that they're in? How do we go about doing that? Because the numbers that's one question.
I think each of us will probably answer in a different way. I know one way that I've seen in practice is by building rapport, which once again is part of the expectations of teachers, getting to know students and knowing how they walk in prepared emotionally that day sometimes is a proactive to try and support them before they have a bad day at school, if they had a bad day at home. Another part that we work with Sandy is for some of our more intense Tier 2 and Tier 3, we have intervention groups of which we have identified behaviors that we're trying to give them coping strategies, and also people within their environment at school that they can go to and feel open to communicate. And then we also have at our Tier 3 level, of which we do analysis of data to find out what type of what type of actions are being triggered, what triggers a response, and then to try and change or make the student and the staff or the school aware of what triggers that student's behavior, where teaching them that they have to have different responses. Those are a few that come to mind. Sandy? Mark?
And I smile because I'm in the mix. As I sit here and I speak to you and look at all of you, I'm thinking about my wraparound students, where I'm making home visits, where I'm trying to engage those parents, those adults in those homes. And it's a challenge every time I'm called in and I hear we need to do some complex planning, we need to do a wraparound, because those families don't trust us. They have fear, they have bad experiences. So in the very top of the triangle, right, it's pointing down on your screen, it's about us helping them understand that we care, that we're not judging, that we're not pointing fingers, that we don't want to know what their status is in terms of where they're at in this country, that we just want to make sure your child takes advantage of that math curriculum or those writing skills that the teachers are wanting to teach, or that math in their language, where they're at. I'm speaking to you as a clinician also. I'm a social worker. So starting where our students are at, starting where those families are at, and letting them be comfortable with who we are, meeting them at home, meeting them for a cup of coffee, which is what wraparound is. It is a little bit out of the box thinking, and I have done that. I had a family, a mom that I couldn't engage. Finally I said, can we just go out for some coffee? And we did. Then we couldn't have her. She wanted to volunteer. She wanted to work for the district. She took all her kids for evaluation. It was a complete turnaround. But I then come to find out that this poor soul had various different chronic situations in her life that if we hadn't taken those 2 hours, she would have never come around. So it's a time issue. It's a training issue.
And to let you know, when she talks about the wraparound, that's more intense, and that's basically taking individuals within the school or within the community, and they become advocates for that child, where they're going to be around that child as a whole. Sometimes it could be a large portion of your staff. Sometimes it could be a large portion of the family or the community or that person's faith. And it's just a matter of making sure that the child knows that there's people around on those intensities. Mark, how about for the
I was going to say, you kind of recognized the answer to your question, that, you know, 2/3 of their day is spent in another environment. How are we connecting with that environment? How are we making our parents and families and guardians welcome, feeling to be welcome when they come into our buildings, so that they can explore and understand the services that we have in place. When families struggle with their kids, and it ends up being an intervention or a door-free experience, we need to be looking at what services we have in place. Schools are being called upon to do so much more these days as far as services. And we do have those, and we think them out in exhaustive ways, but getting that connection to the family dynamic, the family component is the toughest nut to crack. And if you think of, you know, this three-tiered, we have prevention, we have intervention, we have reaction, and that's kind of what I see when I see this pyramid, is that if we can put most of our resources in prevention, we have less intervention and reaction. And reaction is the consequence phase. We're almost at the point where we're making decisions that have nothing to do with educating that kid, but just the safety and wellness for that kid. And sometimes that's mentally, socially, and physically. We've got to continue to find ways to connect with our community. Parents.
The staffing level for doing this, where are we at? Are we probably like that much and we need this much? Is that for lack of a better term?
Well, I will say,
I mean, to answer the question.
For Tier 1 interventions,
This young lady can't be everywhere, and at everyone's.
Right. And part of it, you know, her good work is in that Tier 1 area, is providing those that need more support in generalized interventions in my classroom, and that PD that's available, having open, transparent conversations about our relationships with kids, and then drilling down to specifically these kids that are struggling with that common environment. That's where we have more of the, what I think you're talking about as far as additional resources outside the classroom.
and also are aware grant has added additional social emotional support, and also your supplemental programs has added additional support related to the social emotional well-being and trying to connect with families. I think the other part that our district is very unique in comparison to any other district I've been in is that we have parent liaisons, and we have that connection piece to the community. I think whatever we do, we wish we had more, there's no doubt, but we also know there's budget restraints. But the one thing I've seen is that people believe in including the parents, want to reach out to them whenever possible, and it's getting better each and every year that I've been here.
So what do we have in the district for staffing for social workers and counselors?
The
I mean, do you know total
FTE,
numbers? Yeah.
Every building has one full-time social worker, the middle school.
Every building?
Every building has a
Yeah.
full-time social worker. Now.
We have about 30 social workers.
Thank you, Joan. That
In
does,
addition to that, we have guidance counselors who are also part of the student services team.
and our psychologist, and we have some interventionists too related to behavior that wrap around.
In a few words, what will this grant actually do for us, and where are we with implementing the grant? You know, it was kind of a sizable number that the district recently got.
You know, for that one, that would be the social emotional wellness piece of it. The one that's been most actively involved in the planning is actually James Ferguson, who's over the social workers on that. So you know, it helps with the social emotional piece of it. It's just starting out. Jane can get you a more in-depth as to the goals for the group and get back with you.
I'll throw this out, that primary focus is to be able to identify. So, general expertise in just seeing that someone is struggling in a way that we may not think that has anything to do with mental health, but it very well could be. So this training is going to allow each of our staff members to be able to identify with students and with colleagues a struggle or a potential struggle. And the second thing is, how do we then get to the point of, do I report that, or do I talk to someone about that? Should I have that person? This is right in line with, the question that was asked about bullying and what's the primary problem of bullying? It's social media. It's our ability to, with lightning speed accuracy, target a victim multiple times, rapid fire, without any consequence, because it's out in this cyberspace. And now, how do we respond to that? Is when a student can step forward to a trusted adult and say, hey, this is wrong, we need some help here. Because they're going to try to cope with it in unhealthy ways. The same thing with mental health. When we're coping with mental health and without the supports that we need, it continues to spiral out of control. So this training is really going to give us an opportunity to recognize mental wellness, the science for mental struggles, and then what are the avenues to provide help and support for those people that are struggling, whether they're students or adults.
Thank you, Mark.
What about other staff members that are not social workers or counselors? Is that encouraged, that if a student wanted to speak with another teacher that they may trust, to be able to open up to and talk about things, or is that discouraged because you're not qualified to do that because you don't have the proper credentials for
I think a teacher
that?
needs to be a filter, and that teacher can be, that coach, that favorite teacher can be a trusted adult, but then where is the filter for that teacher? Is this conversation needing to be referred to specialists? So that's the teacher's skill set that will be part of this mental health training, is when do I refer that student to the social worker or the psych? So, yeah.
And the district has implemented our training modules for staff at the beginning of the year, and it even addresses on those, when should you filter it to somebody with an expertise on that. So I think even as a district, adding in our training modules for staff has been something to help educate them on an annual basis.
And if I could just add, thank you for reminding me, at the universal level, the whole point is to learn to establish nurturing relationships with your students. That's good morning. I'm so glad to see you. Great to have you back. You were out for a couple of days after that terrible disagreement we had. That's basic universal expectation 101. I'm glad to see you in my classroom. It should start there. When that 80% is reached, and then we have the rest of our children that are not quite making it at 80%. That's our thank you, our check in, check out, which has been kind of distorted, with all due respect, for the past 8 years that I've been here. It is not a consequence. It is a second layer of, I'm glad you're here. You're on time. You forgot your pencil, but I have one for you. We'll remember it tomorrow. Or have another stash for the next 50 days of school that we have left. Simple, quick, easy kinds of TLC for our kids. I just call it TLC. It comes natural to me. I'm a mom. I'm a social worker. I'm a hugger and a kisser of children when they're mine. But that are all universal. That's all the positive behavior supports. And some folks aren't necessarily comfortable with that, huggy, warmy, kissy kind of stuff. That's fine, but it's still good to see you. Glad you're here. Especially with our high school kids. It's not cool anymore. Now you have to cool it up, I always say, at middle school and high school. But it's still simple, effective. If you can do it high frequency and then get them off the intervention to get them back into their classrooms, that's the whole point. And the ones that don't make it there, then of course we have our groups that address the more social, emotional, getting along with your friends, knowing how to ask if I can play, saying please and thank you, to kind of address those pieces that they don't necessarily get at home.
And I think as she talks about the check-in, check-out, it's also the students knowing that they're going to have a positive interaction with somebody. And at the beginning of the day, the end of the day, and they have somebody who's decided, I'm going to be behind you. I'm not going to let you not have a good day. And to be there. And they're basically committed as their advocate to make sure that they have those positive interactions, because everybody wants to come to work, come to school, and feel as if they're appreciated and valued. And that goes a long way to their engagement and their interest in school. And we continue to remind, as our team talks, that these are their future parents in our district. So we want to make sure that every child that leaves East Aurora has a very positive experience. So once again, their siblings or their children, they can also continue to say that education is something important, both at East Aurora and afterwards.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mark, were you going to go over this piece?
Any thoughts, questions about, a couple things that were brought to either Mike's desk or my desk or Dee or whatnot, just regarding discipline, suspensions, if there are any questions that you had about the spreadsheet that was shared. I also, Ms. Lou was the first one here, I shared with her some handouts if you'd like to just take a look. Marina Cossack, AP from East High, had prepared just some data on insubordination, fights, weapons, drug offenses.
This
for East
one.
High. Yeah, if you want to do a compare contrast with the last 3 years is what she was able to get. I'll throw this out.
Well, look, I have a comment. The numbers are nice, so would someone like to just share what we should take from this? Rather than asking questions.
Sorry. So one thing that you can pull out of this, you'll see that.
Do you need a copy, Mark?
No.
To look at?
Some of the numbers are going up, some are going down. One of the most significant numbers is in just found substance on campus, primarily marijuana. The response to that is that the team is taking great strides in creating links with student body and staff to be more judicious in finding where the substances are. We're not sure how accurate the 12-13 data is there with only 3 drug-related consequences, but we know in any urban area, suburban area, even rural, there are there's lots of marijuana coming in and out of communities, and that's primarily what we're dealing with at high school and middle school. A few alcohol-related offenses, very negligible on prescription drugs or anything beyond that. The reason that number is almost double for this year is because of the work that the East High team has done in following up on leads and tips. And with reasonable suspicion, they're searching backpacks, lockers, and pockets, and finding and removing that substance. So when it becomes a situation where we believe there's any distribution going on, and we're taking a hard line with that distribution, of course, any student found in possession is being consequenced appropriately by school consequence.
Well, I have a question about that. 12 and 13.3, I'm looking at it from a board perspective. Work with me, what does the handbook say about drug, possession of drugs? Because I know that we certainly last year didn't expel 24 students, but there were some. And 12, 13, I'm sure there was more than 3.
Yeah.
So,
The question we always
so
have
what's
to
going
ask-
on with these students? Because
The
I haven't
question,
seen anyone come our way.
The question we always have to ask is, is this student intending to do harm to himself or others, or in this setting, create a situation that could be harmful to self and others? So some examples are, just the use of medical marijuana is on the rise. So there is, we do have families that are using marijuana for therapeutic reasons. We've had some kids at East High that have this on them for the reason that prescription drugs are something they can't afford. They can afford the marijuana. There are other instances where it's just a recreational drug. In the end, we have to intervene with that student. Is it first offense? Has that behavior been corrected? And certainly they'll be held to a standard of suspension out of school to have time to have them assessed, depending on the family's intentions with their child. But if this is a repeat offender and we've got reasonable suspicion that they're distributing as well on campus, then there's a whole different set of consequences for that student. We can't have students on campus distributing drugs. We can't have students on campus willfully using drugs with other students that is influencing our educational environment in that way. So it's got to be treated on a case-by-case basis. I can't speak to the 12, 13 data, nor can Marina. I don't know, Marina, if you have any thoughts on
One
this
thing
question.
that I would like to add is, one of the things that we do if a student is caught to be in possession of marijuana without the intent to distribute, is we do offer an alternative to suspension as well, in getting them the education of what the drug usage can do. We go through, we have talked to Lynn and Oaks, we go through Gateway, different programs that we can offer them, and that will reduce the suspension by half, because we think that education piece is important, and the parents have to take them to get that assessment within the first 5 days of that suspension, and then it's reduced. So we are working with them to also educate them about drug, and as Mr. Truckenberg said, it's basically marijuana. I don't think we found any other substance. So we think the education piece is also important, so we are offering that as well.
Interference of education is just misbehavior in the classroom, or
You said it again?
interference of education?
Disruption can be anything, yeah.
When the teachers write a referral, in our infinite campus system, they have to choose which best category it falls under. So
Okay.
So when you look, there is, sometimes there's a distinguishing factor of physical aggression versus actual fighting, especially at the middle level. When you get a couple knuckleheads together that are doing silly play, and all of a sudden tit for tat becomes punch for punch because they are friends, but we cross the line physically or emotionally, and then it ends up becoming a fight. So sometimes physical aggression can be right on the borderline. Was this really truly a fight meant to I'm coming at you, or it just was bad decision after bad decision and screwing around? So you'll see the administrator will take a stance on whether or not they believe this was an actual fight or horseplay that ended up in someone getting hurt.
There's a lot of kids at the high school.
That's an understatement. That's a little town.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. I will throw out too, just as we transition, had a nice meeting with East High staff today, and I just wanted to put out kudos to the Aurora PD and our school resource officer, Diva Dalcio. I've worked with a dozen SROs, and he's the best of the best. He's an outstanding officer, and the partnership that we have with them and the supports that he gives them, I just wanted to throw out that there's a very strong relationship, and we're going to continue to build that with them.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Is there a motion to go to executive session?
So move.
Second?
It's been moved and second. Secretary, call the roll.
Paul?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Garza?
Yes.
Create?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Lisa's.
Second.
Secretary, call the roll.
Create?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Leonard?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Terza?
Yes.
Okay. Call to order the meeting of February 2nd, 2015 of East Aurora School District 131. Seeing we have a quorum, Secretary, call the roll.
Terza?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Strand?
Here.
Leonard?
Here.
Johnson?
Here.
Paul?
Here.
Create?
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to begin our meeting with communications from the superintendent, Dr. Pop.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for braving the weather and the roads out there. You have a number of comments here, and if you're a literature fan, you might think of a line from Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, the worst of times. And I'll start with the best of times. Last week in this district, some pretty incredible things happened. On one night alone, we had a pack the place girls basketball game going on, and we had a lot of folks show up for that, many more than usual. On the same night, Dr. Lourdes Farrar, a lot of you have met her and worked with her, she was holding a presentation in one of our buildings. About 150 parents showed up for that. At the same time, we had students participating in the Boys to Men Phenomenal Men celebration. There were over 700 people at that event, and a number of many of our current students and former students were honored at that event. Great celebration that night. That night was followed by, in the morning, the Hispanic Advisory Board breakfast. Our full board attended that, and I want to thank everybody for coming out in such a great show of support for our students who were honored there and for our staff members who were honored there. Again, a packed house. It was a great event. This past weekend, then, the Peace Jam happened over at Gates Elementary, and I was able to stop over there for a while. We had over 100 students participating. Linda Chaplavia was our keynote speaker. She did a wonderful job. Boy, she's great with kids. Yeah, we also had the national director of Peace Jam was there. We'll have at some point a conversation here, a discussion item about Peace Jam, so you get to hear what goes on with that organization. It's a great organization focused on or based on the work of laureates, and so it's really it fits well into our social studies conversation we had earlier. So while that was going on the same day, room 149 in alternative ed space at the high school was full of parents, again with Dr. Farrar, and her program was called Grooming for Excellence. On Friday, I got to go back one day, we also had 45 parents in a session called Opening Doors for Success. That was held over at the Registration Center. It's a 10-week program. We had the first day of that program, there were 17 parents there. Now there's 45 coming in attendance, and we're hoping that continues to grow. Lots of great things going on in the district. Within the past 2 weeks, so since last we all met, Dr. Johnson and I walked Hermas Elementary and saw some great examples of instruction based on the Common Core. Really, really good stuff going on in that building. We saw a great use of integrating technology into lessons. We saw a great use of just almost every inch of space on those walls focused on focused on instruction. Lots of kids, very self-directed, so we know teachers are setting up great routines and doing great things. Ms. Gonzalez and I had a great walk at the high school, and while there's a lot of students there, things were organized, kids were doing well, kids were learning.
Don't talk too much, I have very
Okay,
nice comments.
all right. Ms. Johnson and I, the week before last, had a great experience over at the FDK, where again, we saw such engaged learning going on. We talked about there was a young man who just, he's teachers working with some kids, and other students are on their own working. He goes up, he gets his little iPad mini out, picks a phonics app, and went at it. And I'm like, holy cow, he's a kindergartner. I know I'm getting old, but I'm trying to picture what teaching and learning is going to look like by the time that young man is in high school. It's going to be an incredible thing. Lots of great things going on in this school district. And today, if you were here for 5 o'clock, you heard some wonderful educators, passionate educators, speaking about curriculum, for example, speaking about other programs we have here. Now let me flip it to the other side. And I know worst might be a very strong word here, but you go from the really good things in this role to then having to talk about some of the things that aren't great. We've had, and I know I was in conversations with some board members, with the police, with some folks at the schools. When I first came here in April, the city had noticed and staff had noticed an uptick in gang-related activity in Aurora. And this past week we had a couple of incidents that were certainly worth noting, and that we've had to deal with and are continuing to deal with. There was a shooting not too far from East Aurora High School that involved a few of our students. It was definitely a gang-related incident. The young man who was shot, thank goodness, it was not a life-threatening wound, but at the same time, it really underscores what can be happening and what our kids are getting involved in. Two other students who were involved with him, also gang members. We're going to take the strongest stance we possibly can with students who are engaged in activities like that. We know that activity spilled over from something at school. We know there was a nexus to school. If you're wondering, well, that happened away from school, but they connected at school before they went there. And so we take that stuff incredibly seriously. We know there were two other incidents. One involved a fight at the school between two young men, and then another incident where one of the young men, his brothers, came to the school. They're not in school. They're adults. They tried to enter the high school, and I'm so proud of the staff there. You give directions. You say, hey, you see anything suspicious, you got to deal with it. A staff member the first day saw these two gentlemen and said, you have to leave here. They had no legitimate purpose. They left, but they came back the next day. A different staff member gave the same basic direction, knew they shouldn't be there, called for assistance. Those men left the building. Our school resource officer, who's outstanding, he intervened with the two gentlemen, and it ultimately turned out that one of the gentlemen was in possession of a handgun. The staff did a tremendous job of averting what could have been an incredible tragedy in our school. The staff has met with our police. We're identifying students who are gang involved, whether they're in a gang or involved with a gang. We're going to work with those students and those families to try to get them to be legitimate students in our schools. At the same time, though, I promise you, we're going to work very hard to keep our students and our staff safe. And we're going to deal with any student who's disrupting the educational process in any way and who is gang-related. We're going to deal with them very, very severely. Again, I thank the staff for what they did in those incidents, and I thank in advance the high school staff tomorrow and for the days to come. They're on a higher level of alert. They're in the hallways more monitoring. The police will have a greater presence there. We do routinely, after these incidents, we've been doing random wandings of students when they come in, and we'll continue with those kinds of processes to make sure that students are safe. But please know that is of primary concern to us. I would hope that the next time we talk, I'm talking back again about the best of times, and that we can talk more about the great teaching, the great learning that's going on in East Aurora. To the board, I say thank you for your service, and thanks for all being here tonight on this crazy weather night. And thanks to Fabian. I heard you were working on getting a ride, and you got here. So thank you for getting here too on your day off. That's it for me.
Thank you, sir. Community Relations Report, Matt Hanley.
Good evening. We had a student who was going to receive the Inspiring Leader Award. She couldn't make it here tonight because of the weather, but she's going to come to the next meeting. So we'll have 2 presentations at the next meeting. And just a reminder for everyone that the next board meeting is on Tuesday, February 17th, because of the President's Day holiday. Obviously, our schools are closed then. I wanted to talk about several exciting events that are coming up. I know everyone who has an interest in the district will want to be part of these events so they can support our students. This Saturday, there are 2 great athletic events at East Aurora High School. The 5th grade intramural basketball tournament will be held at the gymnasium on Saturday, February 7th. The All-Star game starts at 8 a.m. and then there's a free throw contest after the game. Also on this Saturday, coming up, the Ernie Cavisto Hoop Fest, named for one of the state's greatest coaches who led the Tomcats to 3 Elite 8 appearances. It will be played Saturday, February 7th. It will be played at the gymnasium, named for Ernie Cavisto. And the tournament will start, there's games at 4:30 and 6 o'clock. And then East Aurora will play Aurora Christian in the 3rd game of the tournament, and that tips off at 7:30. And there's more information about that on the district's website. We talked about the girls, 5th grade girls intramural basketball tournament. The 5th grade boys also have an intramural basketball tournament. That'll be the following Saturday, February 14th, also at East Aurora High School. The games will also begin at 8 a.m., and there will be cheerleading performances at noon. In fact, if you and your sweetheart want to make a day of it at East Aurora High School on February 14th, Valentine's Day, we have plenty going on. Cheap date, maybe. The East Aurora Band Boosters Association will hold its annual pancake breakfast that day, 7 to 11 a.m. in the high school's cafeteria. Tickets are $5 in advance or $6 at the door, and tickets can be purchased from band students at the high school or the Magnet Academy or from the band director, Mr. Liska. I think Mr. Darby's going to talk a little bit more about that. He knows a lot more details. And then that night, East Aurora will play West Aurora in boys basketball. Tip-off is scheduled for 7:15, and that, in addition to being an East-West game, there will also be the presentation of the latest inductees into the East Aurora Athletic Hall of Fame. So at 4 p.m., there'll be a reception in the cafeteria for those inductees, and then the inductions will take place between the sophomore and varsity games. And the names will be announced soon, and we'll have that information on the website. And then finally, on February 19th, the district will host a celebration for Black History Month. And the theme of the event is Who Am I? It's an exploration of the changing role of African American identity. And the event will be held at 6:30 p.m., Thursday, February 19th, in the auditorium at the high school. It's free, open to the public, so not just East Aurora students or staff members, but anyone who wants to come and hear this. The guest speaker for the event will be author and education expert Baruti Kafeli. I spoke to him today about what he'll be speaking about, and very inspiring and dynamic person. Additionally, there'll be student presentations at the event, performances by an African drum and dance group, and a community gospel choir. And more information will be posted on the website.
Thank you, sir. Student board member comments. Fabian Badillo.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Sounds like I hope you all didn't have too much difficulty getting into this snowy weather. I really appreciate you guys coming. What I also appreciate is the amount of students that attended the Peace Jam Slam at Gates Elementary. During the event, many workshops were held and special guests came to speak. The event was spectacular, and there will be many sessions to come. Starting this slam means that eventually we may even have a Nobel Peace Prize winner come to our district, and hopefully I can use my Stanford connections to get that to happen. This past week, DECA competed in their sectionals competition, and many students will be moving on to the state level. We hope that many students will continue to the national competition. Thank you, Dr. Pop, for mentioning the Boys to Men Phenomenal Man Awards. I am an officer in the organization, and it was great seeing him there along with many service students. I look forward to more great accomplishments to come as the spring sports begin. Hopefully the tennis team breaks another record for the most wins in recent history. And that is my report.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have our public comments session. We would ask that you would please respect the 3-minute time limit, respect the confidentiality of students and staff, to respect confidentiality and protect student safety. We ask the speakers not to comment on issues involving individual students or staff members. Those issues should be addressed with a school administrator. If it cannot be resolved at the school, then with the district administrator. Please keep your comments appropriate. Speakers are reminded that this meeting is open to all ages. As you come, would you please state your address for the record? And our first speaker will be Laurel Denny Padron.
I'm Laurel Denny Padron. I reside at 2600 Gateshead Drive in Naperville. I'm also a retired East Aurora teacher since 2011 with over 20 years with the district. My comments tonight are really directed towards you, Dr. Pop. I have a direct quote that I will read from the Aurora Police report referencing a phone call between you and Officer Winsek on January 20th, 2015. Quote, Dr. Pop advised he already was familiar with him and informed me, Padron's wife, a retired teacher, had her health insurance erroneously paid for a period of time by the district. This was corrected by the district, which upset Padron. I ask you, Dr. Pop, where did you get that information? It really would be to your credit to check your facts before making erroneous, false allegations. Never has this district paid erroneously or otherwise for my health insurance when I was actively teaching or since I've retired. I have check copies to prove that. We were given a premium amount to pay, which covered myself and my husband Ralph, and it was paid monthly, unlike a staff member who was allowed to ride off into the sunset, never paying an insurance premium, as well as the fiasco with Jay Augustine. District insurance only became an issue due to the time constraints, how it was handled, no one wanting to take responsibility for the pain and trouble it caused. It's old news, and it's been put to rest. I feel, Dr. Pop, you are upset and angry with my husband Ralph and what he is doing regarding the district. In the future, though, do not try to get back at him by going after me. That would be a terrible move and a big mistake. Our phone rings nonstop from 7 in the morning till after 10 o'clock at night with people checking their facts with Ralph. He does not present any facts he does not prove. I would ask you to do the same. While I believe I'm owed an apology, it would be meaningless because I've had to ask for it. When all else fails, this erroneous information regarding the district supposedly paying my health insurance appears to surface. It's about time you and anyone else using this line find a new one. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Vincent Fry, or Fry? Fry? Vincent Fry.
My name is Vincent Fry. I live at 632 Birchwood in Yorkville. I'd like to introduce myself, take this opportunity to introduce myself and the company that I've proudly worked for over 20 years. Again, my name is Vincent Fry, and I focus on service and maintenance issues for Olson Roofing Company, located here in Aurora, Illinois. Our service department deploys 15 one- and two-man service crews daily, performing all aspects of roof maintenance, repair, and alterations. We are an authorized applicator of over 40 roof systems and typically schedule work within 48 hours once we have a notice to proceed. In 2013, we were the successful bidders for the preferred vendor program. However, the Buildings and Grounds Department decided to give the work to a contractor that did not do the bid for the preferred vendor contract. Olson Roofing wonders how this can happen in an economically challenged district. We are right in your backyard. We pass you every day going to job sites and coming back from those job sites. One of my proudest moments working for the district for over 20 years was when Krug School had the blow-off. That happened on 8/5 of 2012. That was a Sunday. We got the call from the district. We had men on the roof by 7 o'clock in the morning. We had that school watertight by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That was a complete blow-off where you can see the structural decking with no protection. We have no hidden fees, no trip charges, and we have a great safety program and one of the lowest EMR ratings in the industry. We would love to get your business back and continue the relationship that we've had for over 20 years that I've been with the company. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Darby.
Ken Darby, 214 Bevere Place. Good evening, Dr. Pop and board members and audience. As Ben Booster's president this year, I'd like to announce it, and thank you, Matt, for announcing it, that our pancake breakfast is February 14th, 7-11 in the morning. I personally invite all of you to come. If you didn't know it, the jazz band will play, but also this year, we have the Magnet School will be performing also. So that's going to be a spectacular. So if you like music, this is the place to go. Some of the goals that Mr. Liska has outlined that we are raising funds for are new flags for the marching band. He would like to have 3 sets. He currently has 1. They went to a marching review at Oswego this last year, and we're about the only band that only has 1 set of flags. Now those flags are not cheap either. So that's part of what we're raising this money for. We're also raising the money so that these students can take a trip every other year. Last year they went to New York City. So it's a great experience for them. That's some of the things that we're raising this money for. So we'd like to see you there. All the students that are in band have tickets. Magnet School students have tickets. You can email Mr. Liska if you can't find a student. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Sullivan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'd like to give you guys all a copy of this. If you could please pass this form. Good evening. My name is Sean Sullivan. I reside at 313 South Commonwealth in Aurora, and I've lived in Aurora for over 20 years and worked for Olson Roofing for 15 years. I'm one of the principals of the company in the business, and we reside at 740 South Lake Street. To expand on my colleague Vince's comments, Olson Roofing celebrated our 100th year in business last year, 2014. Olson Roofing is an Aurora contractor that has been serving the District 131 for more than 20 years. During this time, we believe that we have provided fair and reasonable pricing to the district. In April of 2013, Olson Roofing was approved as one of the contractors through the district's preferred vendor program. At this time, we just finalized the emergency project that Vince just spoke about at the Krug School. It was a storm where the section of the roof had blown off, causing significant damage to the building's interior, as I'm sure you all remember. As Vince explained, it was an early morning emergency phone call that is typical of Olson's response time, and it's indicative of our services that we've provided to the district throughout the years. In 2013, Olson Roofing received work as a result of the preferred vendor program. However, this work dwindled as the year went on, and in 2014 we did not receive any work. As you guys can see in the attached accounting statement, we did 0 business with the district in 2014. We believe that this was a direct result of the building and grounds director that was hired, one of our competitors by the name of Malcor Roofing, to perform work that was designated for the preferred vendor program. As you know, Malcor was never part of the preferred vendor program, and their billing rate was much higher than ours. That leaves me with 2 questions that I have for the board, which are simply these. How could the district responsibly award bid to an unqualified roofer at a higher cost? And why would the district implement a preferred vendor program if they were not going to use it? At the end of 2014, Solaris Roofing out of West Chicago and Sullivan Roofing out of Schaumburg were the apparent low bidders on the most current preferred vendor program. We believe that the bid form itself was flawed, and this is why. The bid form only shows a labor rate, and that does not include any of the hidden charges that a lot of other contractors hide in this fee. So what ends up happening is that they give you a very low rate going into it so that they're approved by the board of directors to do the work, and then they hit you with all these hidden costs, which Olson Roofing has never done. And I find it very upsetting that that's what is apparently going to happen. So what I'm asking the board to do tonight is table your decision until the facts can be reviewed, and you guys can go through this program and see, or at least have a scope review with the apparent low bidders, so that you can ask them about these charges that will most definitely be applied. I ask this because I'm a taxpayer in the city of Aurora. I live here. It means a lot to me that we've done a lot of work with the school district for a long time.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Theodia Gillespie.
Good evening. Theodia Gillespie, 910 Trask Road. I'm here today this evening to talk as a parent. I know I've come before you before as the president of the Quad County Urban League. As a parent and a taxpayer who understands the responsibility of being a board member, recently I learned, and Dr. Pop, I appreciate the information that you shared today regarding the incidents in the schools. But I was looking back on years when parents would receive a notification that anytime an incident that was threatening to a child, the parent would know about it, the parent and the community would know about it. I was totally shocked, being that I have a child who attended East Aurora High School, and there was no message or no information given to the parents ensuring that this would not happen and that our child would be safe. To not inform parent is reckless and blatantly disrespectful to the children, parents, and residents of the East Aurora community. As board members and administrators and those who are parents and who have or had children in public schools know better. You have the obligation to ensure that every individual that resides in your building, whether as a student, teacher, custodian, counselor, administrator, or security person, to feel safe. I am disappointed that you can in good faith think that that is acceptable to not inform parents that there were individuals who could have caused severe harm to their child. My child would have been in that area when these guys unfortunately did not get into the building, and thank God the stars lined up where they were apprehended and no harm was to the child. Despite the positive outcome, as a parent, I should have been contacted if there was a potential threat towards my child. My child would have gone to her car, driven home in dark, and I would have not known anything of any threat or danger that she was in. These notices have been given me and other parents an opportunity to talk to our children about being careful or remove them in an unsafe environment. As president of the Quad County Urban League, I am here to advocate for the safety and consideration of every child and parent voice who have not been heard, and to break down the barriers of those who use their political and social influence to not protect the children of this district. Dr. Pop, I'm asking. I know I could have called, but there are several times I did not get a response from you on other issues, but I would like for you to host a meeting and discussion with me and other parents on how you're going to protect our children going forward. Thank you for the update. But again, there's many parents who are not here tonight to hear the policies and procedures you're putting in place to protect the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Susan Skelly.
Susan Skelly, 1512 Oswego Road, Naperville. Hi, I'm Susan Skelly, proud to be a Tomcat tennis coach for the past 42 years at East Aurora High School. The Phillips Park courts are the oldest in Aurora, put in when Phillips Park was established. 6 clay courts that became all-weather courts. 6 additional courts added in 1974, 41 years ago. They have served us well. Boys and girls tennis teams, physical education classes, summer programs, and even park programs following tennis team practices. The last time major work was done on these courts was 22 years ago, a joint venture between our district, the city, and the Park District. About 11 years ago, cracks started that needed attention. We have patched and made do, but they are now in need of major work and replacement. I am hoping this will finally happen this summer before they are not usable for our fine Tomcat tennis players and classes. 12 courts are what makes it possible to run tournaments with 42 matches. 12 courts make it possible to run dual meets with 2 levels and finish before nightfall. Our courts have served us well again, and during this period I have seen other courts, the Washington courts on the west side, resurfaced and redone 5 times, Wabansie Court 4 times. Our teams are made up of outstanding East Aurora students. Many students among our top academically. Your current board has a tennis player that is an adult. We have a student board member that is a player. We have administrators in the district who have played for East Aurora. They work hard. Our tennis team players work hard to improve. Last year, the guys had 13 wins. They hope to improve upon this spring. We would like to be able to place singles and doubles matches without having to strategically avoid losing a foot or ball in a crack. 42 years, 1 repair. It is time. Visitors often are exposed to the east side through our courts and Phillips Park. It has been a source of pride. The tennis guys and girls have been great ambassadors for East Aurora and the city of Aurora. We appreciate your desire to plan on resurfacing these courts from all of us, players, students, and coaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Ralph Padron.
Before I forget to begin, Ray, I requested publicly last time at this meeting for an additional 3 minutes. I never got a response. Is there a reason?
I believe that
Courtesy?
I shared with you last meeting, Ralph, that I would not be extending additional meetings.
Okay, so
minutes.
That'll be for all meetings? Then,
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Ralph Padron, 2600 Gateshead, Naperville. If you want to put to rest the altered trash liner quote scandal, here are several suggestions. Locate the original quote, which was altered. If the original was altered, then locate the scanner where the quote was scanned in the B&G office. When you find that, you'll have a good idea who altered the quote. Ask for all quotes given for each purchase in 2014. Provide documents which were written to validate that the vendor could not deliver. The September purchase had an approval log which was implemented to prevent, yet it passed. Again, how can we state corrective measures taken, yet still this passes by? Upon gathering all of the above, I request a member of my team and I sit on a presentation to validate that all statements in the police report can be supported by the superintendent and the supervisor at B&G. Regarding the floor scrubber purchase also mentioned, I now have new evidence to question the decisions to proceed with the 2 purchases totaling $51,980. This never went out for bid. 1, please provide all quotes for these purchases. They don't exist. 2, all emails regarding information for this purchase. This would be a good start as I finalize all other new evidence. Let's do this together to put to rest the PCS floor scrubber purchases. It must be noted that this issue was discussed in the police report. As you heard tonight from my wife, Laurel Denny, the allegation of free health insurance in the police report is totally false. I can prove that many statements made in that report were false and cannot be supported by any documents. We must remember the police report was a gathering of statements from those individuals mentioned in my complaint. I supported my complaint with legal documents I obtained. They were not required to do so. This is very important to understand. I'm publicly asking to have an open meeting in which all parties can participate and share documents to put this issue to rest. We must remember the police report was gathering. I am confident that documents cannot be provided to support the statements of those individuals involved. If I am wrong, I will publicly apologize to all present. Please accept my offer. Regarding transparency, why will Dr. Pop not respond to my writing to my concerns? I am again asking publicly for responses to all previous emails and issues I have spoken about in these meetings. Recently, I had many responses from individuals who are willing to provide info for further FOIA investigation. This board and EA staff needs to understand that the employees, taxpayers, and Aurora citizens are fed up with this administration and its...
Thank you. Thank you. Diane Arch.
It's ARP, Diane Arp, 404 Northampton Court, Naperville. I'm speaking tonight regarding the failure to comply with FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act requests, referred to as FOIA. A packet of information will be supplied to you when I'm through. In January of 2015, a FOIA request was submitted asking for copies of all emails to and from Michael Pop, to and from Bernie Weiler, and the Board of Education with the subject matter list of bills during the time frame of August 1st, 2014 to November 1st, 2014. The Assistant Director of Community Relations responded to this FOIA submission stating the request was denied because, and I quote, there are no documents responsive to your request, which essentially means what you're asking for doesn't exist. In January 2015, a FOIA request was made asking for copies of all emails to and from Michael Pop, to and from Bernie Weiler, and the Board of Education regarding the subject matter heat exchangers during the time frame of August 1st, 2014 to November 1st, 2014. Again, the Assistant Director of Community Relations responded stating that it was denied, and I quote, there are no documents responsive to your request, or the stuff doesn't exist. Well, going through documents recently received from a previous FOIA, there was an email from Board of Education member Annette Johnson dated August 14th, 2014, sent at 8:36 to Michael Pop. The subject of that email, list of bills. What was discussed in that email? Heat exchangers. In the email, Ms. Johnson states, and I quote, in today's list we have a check issued for $45,400 to Youngrens. The description states the following: Allen School replaced heat exchangers. I do not recall having a public bid on this. If so, please give me the date, as this is over $25,000. Also, they had 13 service calls billed to Allen. Is this the result of a problem or something else? Further email exchanges occurred on this topic as well between Christy Tyler, Michael Pop, and Martin Feltus. So clearly emails exist, despite claims to the contrary. Why is this information being withheld? Information that's required by federal law to be provided upon request. Several other previous FOIA requests were met with the same nothing exists response. Based on what happened here, how can we trust that that information isn't also being withheld? On January 27th, 2015, the Board of Education was contacted regarding FOIA denials and withheld emails. Did anyone on the board contact the Assistant Director of Community Relations to discuss the negligence displayed here? Jody Gleason, Assistant Kane County State's Attorney, suggested we contact Lisa Madigan at the Illinois Attorney General's office regarding the failure to comply with FOIA requests with 100% transparency. Rest assured this will happen. In the past, I've spoken to you regarding bid rigging, failure to comply with preferred vendor protocol, and taxpayer money being wasted. It is not personal. It is not a vendetta. It has everything to do with fighting for the best interests of the children of District 131. Because every dollar you waste is a dollar not spent on the kids, and we will continue fighting for them.
Thank you. Okay. We have our board comment period at this time. We will begin with Ms. Sturza.
You know, when I listen to all of this, it makes me very, very unhappy because as a member of the board, and this is just my own personal opinion, I'm saying there is nothing illegal or corrupt taking place. Each time I sit here and listen to innuendos, criticism of staff, and go on and on, What I do know is that if any irregularities are brought to our attention, they're addressed and they are taken care of. We don't just let these things go by the wayside. So, you know, the business office has been criticized a lot, but what you have to remember that it was in a flux last year. We did not have a business manager. We were putting in a new business system. I don't know if any of you have ever put in a new system at work, but it takes a long time to get things ironed out and to get the system up and running properly. So we have a new superintendent, we have a new business manager. They were just hired in April. We need to give them time to get running up to par, to do things properly. I am so sick of all the criticism and blame. And instead of that, I would like to see this whole group, including our board, focus on positive things and think about all the good things that we've done for this district, like the all-day kindergarten, like the magnet school, like restoring the arts program to the schools, like buying the new uniforms for the band, doing all the good things. We try to do our best. When you're on this board, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So, you know, we try to do our best. I personally really take it seriously. I read everything. I try to vote properly, the way that a person should. Do I make mistakes? I'm a human being. I may make mistakes. I don't know. I don't think we have to agree all the time, but what we do need to do is to treat each other with dignity and with respect. And I would like to ask Mr. Padron if he has investigated District 203, in which he resides, with the same degree of intensity to see if they have any wasteful spending over there for the district to which he belongs. And that's all I have to say today.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Okay, last Tuesday, Mr. Pop honored me by inviting me to walk the halls at East High. Our expert tour guide was Mr. Bird, and he was like a proud papa. Was that man proud of that school? He really, really enjoyed. He was like a big peacock, you know, showing everything. I know my buildings here, and I know the principals and staff love it, but he was out of this world. I just kept staring at him and said, wow, he's really for it. Then, but truly, why were we there? I would say on my part, sort of curiosity. Curiosity, wanting to know really what was going on, because as you hear so many stories, I was beginning to dread that the high school I knew and I had been to was completely out of control. I was scared. In that sense, I said, wow, what's going to happen here? What did we see? Oh my God. Let's begin with that room 149 where they have the credit recovery. You don't want to leave it. You want to stay there because everyone is so eager to be working, to do their own thing, to go ahead. And you talk to the students and they don't want to talk to you. They want to continue doing what they are. And if they could stay more or longer, they would. As we walked the hallways were quiet. There were no stragglers. Then we visited the library. It was full of students, but students working, engaged, looking for things, asking about books. So you know they were there, not wasting time. Then we visited from the freshman school to the bilingual area, and we talked to teachers. We went into classrooms. The students didn't pay any attention to us. They were engaged. What classes we heard were interesting. There were topics I had taught before, so I knew what was going on. We looked at the books. Everyone was engaged. Even we went to a detention room. Come on, there was order in there. I just couldn't believe it. I said, well, did they earn it? Yeah, they earned, but in a negative way. But they were there, and they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And to top it all, the building was extremely clean. It was very, very clean. Was everything perfect? If you remember that training that was once given by ASCD, that was called Another Set of Eyes, it is impossible for anything to be perfect. There were little minute details that we, as another set of eyes, looking into, were able to identify. And we talk about it with Proud Papa. So we let him know, okay, what about doing this? Or doing, and immediately, oh yes, you know, I never thought about that. And it's normal, because of course we are all humans. Okay, come on, this thing, how does it turn it on? Now it's dark. See, that's what happens when you age. Okay, now it came back. Mr. Bird, you're not here tonight, but I want to congratulate you and your administration team. You are doing a great, great job. And furthermore, all the staff members I spoke to, the attitude I perceived from them was from people that were happy, were proud of what they're doing. Now, this brings me to some disturbing thoughts. Why are we here? My understanding is that, like me, we all feel responsible for the education and well-being of the children of our district. We are responsible for empowering them with the tools that will allow them to be productive members of the society they will be joining. How are we supposed to do it? Dr. Pop has an extremely well-prepared professional team. A team that is always ready to move forward, developing and fine-tuning all the programs. Our teachers and our principals never step back, always saying, now what comes? The support staff continuously says present. Now, but how can everyone continue doing their jobs when the most precious commodity is many times taken away from them? This commodity is not other thing than time. Unneeded demands and interruptions from individuals who do not hesitate to take time from anyone as long as their requests are satisfied. What are they after? Recognition? Recognition for what? Is the worth of the individuals they're interrupting of so little value? I'm very, very proud of the 6 years I have been able to serve on this board. This is a board that has always supported the district administrations, and whenever mistakes are made and have been identified, we strive to correct them. Please allow us the time to do our jobs. Our priorities are delivering an education. For us, children come first. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leonard?
Can you come back to me? Are you so busy listening to her?
Here, do you know how to open this thing? You can use it.
Okay. Ms.
Okay, well,
Johnson?
I bet our kindergarten student could have that running 1, 2, 3.
I am on my second childhood, so I'll get there.
So we'll invite the all-day kindergarten kids next time to run our iPads. But anyways, I wanted to have a different twist here. I wanted to talk about my visit at the all-day kindergarten. So it's the first time I got to go over and see it, and Dr. Pop and I went and visited all the classrooms. And wow, what a difference all-day kindergarten makes for the kids. So it was all the kids, as far as I could see, because I have visited kindergarten kids a lot in our district. I have a particular book I've read to many kindergarten kids in our district. So I can honestly say there's probably, I have visited more kindergarten classes than any other in our district. And I can just see in the few months they have been in that all-day kindergarten, they are already far more advanced than kids that were in the regular kindergarten programs in the spring. And the technology, we had technology in every classroom, the iPad carts, the pull-out sessions for the kids who, you know, were a little bit behind. We had a graduating class there that day of kids who were a little bit behind that were able to now move right forward with the rest of their classmates. So really good things were happening with the all-day kindergarten. And it was funny because on the theme of criticism, we got some criticism that we moved too fast to open the all-day kindergarten. But you know what? It was probably the best move this district ever made, because as I told Dr. Pop after our visit, I really do believe that you know, within certainly our lifetimes within this district, we will not see the advancement. But I will say, those kids that are going through that program are going to change the direction of this district. And there's 450 of them now that are going through that program that, you know, are certainly, no doubt, are going to be up to speed and moving along. So that was probably, looking back on all the other things that we've done, I would say that's probably been the best use of our money. So it was great. So the one thing, you know, I'm going to call on, because on the flip side here, we have to provide all-day kindergarten now to everybody, no doubt about that. We got to figure out how to do that. That has to be the big next challenge that comes in front of the district. And, you know, there's been a lot of discussion on how to pay for that, and just a lot of angst, you know, with our levies, and a lot of complaints going on with that. So then on the flip side, we saw, you know, there was an article in the Beacon News. I see our 2 reporters out there, and got some complaints, and some people that got very concerned about, you know, the busing, or, you know, are we going to pass more referendums after a comment that was made, those kind of comments. And, you know, I just want to comment on that. I really got to thinking hard on that, because I want to go back to not focusing on all of this other business. I want to go back to focusing on solving problems. And so the all-day kindergarten's a problem now, along with the overcrowding at the high school. And I think that we really have to look at, A, be responsible to our taxpayers, but B, find additional revenues for the district. And with the state, in uncertain times, we don't know how that will go. So tonight, I guess I'm calling on, after doing a lot of serious soul-searching and thinking, as I was very intrigued by Kendall County coming out with a sales tax proposal. And I think that maybe the best thing for this district to do is maybe try in the Kane County now with Dr. Pop here to lead the charge on maybe sales tax. That helps some of our and it would be a county-wide tax, but I don't know of any school in the Kane County right now that isn't struggling for some dollars. And, you know, certainly with our friends to the west, they're looking at a referendum, and, you know, certainly they need that, but who knows if it's going to pass in these trying financial times. We just can't put the burden any longer on the taxpayers. This is not working. So I think that that seriously considering this sales tax is something we need to do to fund education, because it does shift the burden a little bit. And I think that, I know for our district, if we got another $4 or $5 million in, that'd be huge, because we could certainly go and build an all-day kindergarten center or do a lot of other things with that money. We've certainly been hurt by the state's funding formulas, $35 million now over just a couple of years. We could have had that new all-day kindergarten center, and those lives could have been changed sooner. Because, I look back on why we didn't go with the all-day kindergarten. Well, we thought we were running out of money because of insurance, which really wasn't the case. But, and I don't want to talk about insurance anymore. I'm sick of insurance. But the bottom line is those financial decisions have hurt this district. So finding other alternative sources to change the lives of the kids, that's what needs to happen. And I really think that we should get out there and lead the charge, because maybe this sales tax could be a softened blow to the taxpayers, where everybody would feel alike. Problem is right now with our current real estate values, the bond and interest payments are really hard to make. That's why our taxpayers keep seeing these significant increases. And so looking at these alternatives for funding, I hope that that's what we can do, because boy, I will tell you, I would like to challenge anybody to go out and see that kindergarten. You will be impressed. The kids were already writing, they were already reading, they were certainly using their iPads a whole lot better than I can use mine. So it was just a neat experience, and that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. So that is it. So on to Ms. Perea here.
Thank you. I would like to share my perspective on what has been stated publicly, both in the press and during the public comments over the past months. My perspective is going to take kind of a wide-angle look at these matters, and at the end, I'm going to connect the dots that I'm going to put forth. The first point would be that East Aurora, West Aurora, and Indian Prairie all employed a new superintendent for the school year 14-15. Both in West Aurora and Indian Prairie, the outgoing superintendent was an educator as well as the person who was running the district. In both of those districts, the outgoing superintendents turned over the keys to their new superintendents, both of whom are educators and are currently running the district. Point number 2. In reading the police report that Mr. Padron provided the board this morning, he clearly acknowledged to the investigating officer that he was on a mission, calling himself the Mexican Robin Hood. Even after the investigator stated that he found that this instance did not raise up to the level of probable cause needed, Mr. Padron said he would work through other channels. I assume that means until someone somewhere agrees with him. To his credit, Mr. Padron is holding the district responsible for irregularities made, and those irregularities are being corrected. However, Mr. Padron appears to have jumped the gun and identified people by name as being guilty of corruption with no legal basis for such a claim. He has used a legal term that has a legal definition in the charges he made in the Beacon, the Voice, and in recent public comments. It is my feeling that Mr. Padron should be held responsible for his wrongful use of an accusatory term. I'm a person that likes to look at facts, and as I look at the police report, I see that some of the facts that have been presented up here at the podium by members of Mr. Padron's team were reshaped a bit when they were presented to the police department, to the investigator. In fact, the comment about health insurance, Dr. Pop advised that Padron's wife had her health insurance erroneously paid for a period of time by the district. You know, when we take the words that we use and we take responsibility for them, we can kind of twist them and turn them in different ways to kind of bring up whatever emotion we're looking for. But those are the words that are there. Point 3, as noted earlier, in West Aurora and Indian Prairie, the outgoing superintendent left, turning the keys over to the current superintendents. In East Aurora, Dr. Roberts was the educator and superintendent, and he did turn his set of keys over to Dr. Pop. However, for several years, the district had been run on a day-to-day basis by the then board president. From bidding and purchasing to backroom agreements and approving checks, she was involved in all of it. Hiring and firing, suspensions and demotions, Ms. Johnson ran the district like it was her private company. And she is still with us, holding on to that extra set of keys and trying to maintain her influence. As I connect the dots, I say that it is my perspective that Dr. Pop has the right and the responsibility to lead this district in all areas and to eliminate all poor business practices. In fact, even if a past practice was good, I think he has the right to simply say, that may have been how you did it then, but this is the way we're going to do it now. Every superintendent needs to establish their strong leadership and resist the pressure of questionable influence. We will continue to live out this newspaper label of soap opera until the public begins to trust that a new era has really come, that we are living in a time where we correct wrongs when they are revealed, and that we have established strong practices that serve all segments of our community well. It is my belief that Dr. Pop can and will eventually bring the public to that place. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Strand.
All right. Well, first, I'd like to thank Dr. Pop for initiating with all of us the opportunity to go visit the schools with you, and I'm looking forward to my visit at Waldo this week, so thank you for that. Also, congratulations to students and staff that are here that were recognized at the Boys to Men event last week, as well as the Hispanic Heritage Breakfast. It truly was a great week last week of honoring this district and some of the great things that are happening. And a lot has been said about public comment, so I'm not going to dwell on it much longer, except that I would like to say that I very much look forward to the public comment section of this meeting. There are perspectives out there that we hear that we may not be aware of, and I appreciate that. Ms. Gillespie, I think your point was very valid, and that is definitely something that I hope we'll talk to our superintendent about and figure out a way that we can move forward in a different way under those situations, and also in addressing you and others with regards to what has happened. We learn things from you, and I appreciate people coming. But Mr. Padron, unfortunately, we have heard about these same issues over and over and over again. We are taking steps to remedy them. Not all of them are things that we can reveal in public when we're dealing with personnel issues and other things. Comments are heard and they are acted on. That doesn't always mean we can get back to you with the exact response that you are probably looking for. But when we were presented with the number of hours that our staff has had to put in to deal with FOIA requests just from you and your team alone, it is very sad to me that they are being taken away from educating our students and doing the things that we have hired them to do. Please, by all means, if there are concerns that people have, we want to hear about them. But once we've been heard about them and are taking steps to remedy them, things were done in the past that we cannot go back and undo, and we are doing what we can to move forward from them. But please, let our educators do their jobs as well. Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to say, I'd never want to stop anybody from going up to that pedestal or that podium and talking. But you got to get your facts straight. There's a lot of things that have been said up there that are not true. And last week, or the last meeting, for instance, this last young lady that spoke about painting the flagpoles, and I believe she said they painted aluminum poles and stainless steel poles, and that the district rented a lift for the contractor, which was totally untrue. That did not happen. And when we went into executive session, Ms. Tyler told us that was not true. We did not rent a lift. Well, we knew that, or I found out about it anyway. But it was never mentioned to the audience. And if you don't answer the public about these things, they think everything he said is true. He doesn't necessarily get all of his facts. He's got a lot of disgruntled employees in this district that feed him information. And that's how he knows what's going on. We don't know as a board what's going on. We don't know half of the stuff that comes out of the people expect us to know. We don't know those things. Nobody tells us those things. He gets this information from employees, disgruntled employees, and he runs with it. If he doesn't get accurate information through this Freedom of Information Act, he's gonna use whatever information he's got. Some newspapers, like The Voice, they'll publish anything. The Beacon News doesn't do that. They're a little bit more responsible, I think, than The Voice. But we have, Ms. Johnson has been stating for months and months that there were irregularities and that should have been looked into. We never heard anything about it. I've never heard any of those things changed. What we have to do is answer to these charges, and I've never seen that. They just pile them on and pile them on and pile them. Everybody thinks that everything he says is true. Some things he says is true. That's good. I would not stop him from coming up here. I wouldn't stop anybody. If it's true, we want to know about it, because we don't know. Nobody tells us anything, and there's no way we can find out. There was 85 lists. There was 85 pages to the bills this week. This pay period here. There's no way and most of those bills are not documented, so we know what they're for. He finds out because he's got information from the inside. We have no clue. So it's up to the superintendent and the administrators to figure this out. But I know a lot of the information he comes up with is sketchy at best. Maybe some of it's true, I don't know. But whatever it is, we've solved those problems and we're working on it. Nobody's perfect. And we've always had problems in that building and grounds department. When I came on here, we had 800 visits to Menards. I don't know if you remember that. In 7 months. I mean, I analyzed some of those bills and actually looked them up. And there was a lot of stuff in there that never went into their school buildings, I'm sure. I asked for an audit and never could get the board to agree to an audit. So we have those same people working for us today. We could have had, if we would have audited some of those people probably wouldn't be here. But you have to answer these questions. When he comes up with something, you have to answer it. And I don't think we've done a very good job at doing that. And regarding this pre-qualification for maintenance and repair vendors, I was shocked myself that Olson was not on that list, or Melcor was not on the list. We've only got one electrical contractor, and we didn't get any information as how these contracts are divvied out, or exactly what the criteria is, or what the rules are on who you call. A lot of gray areas. And that's the problem in the building and grounds department right now. There's so many gray areas in the purchasing, then you've got supervisors purchasing that really don't have the training. There are some questionable things, but they should have been caught. I mean, some of these things should have been caught long before they got to that point. So I wouldn't kill the messenger, that's for sure. Anybody's got a problem, that's where they should go. And we need more information. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think I would, I'm going to touch on some of those, most of the subjects that have been covered by the other board members. I will begin with, though, earlier at our 5 o'clock meeting, we had a presentation about our OVEUS and PBIS programs. The OVEUS is the bullying program that we have in the district that's been going on for a few years. And so I think I want to speak a little bit to bullying. And this is a subject that everyone's familiar with. If you've ever been a student, maybe you have a child that's been bullied, maybe you were a bully yourself, but anyone that knows me knows that I'm the type person that will defend a person that's being bullied. I don't believe in it. I never have. And so I'll begin my comments there, is that I feel like there's a lot of bullying that's taking place. And I'll start with, let me add one number. Mrs. Strand talked about the number of hours that we've spent on FOIAs. The number is roughly 150 hours that have been spent just lately going through FOIAs. That's a lot of money by administrators, staff members to take care of that. Begin with, Mr. Padron and I have spoken on many of occasions, and I don't, we have agreed to disagree on how things are being handled. I believe that many of the issues could be handled privately. At one point, we had an agreement that that might take place. And I believe, I don't know, but I believe that the inability to have certain conversation about personnel issues with the superintendent has probably irritated him to the point where he felt like that he would not keep some things private any longer. But I do feel like that we're being bullied from the perspective of there is a mission to remove certain employees, and that if that does not happen, we'll continue to hear about what I would determine may be some ineptness or maybe some other term, corruption, I don't agree with. I spoke about it at the last meeting. Corrupt has a negative connotation that does not necessarily fit with what's been going on. And whether all of the facts are there or not, it's irrelevant. There's some issues that are going on. The board is responsible because we vote for not only who's in charge of the division or department, as well as we also have something to say about discipline. We agreed to personnel reports where we hire individuals, where we've individuals are hired that may not have the correct skills and knowledge to be able to perform the job. That does not fall under corruption. There are some other terms, but I won't aid that. I think I've said enough, and maybe somebody's not able to do their job. So I feel like we're being bullied in one aspect, that if certain people aren't disciplined, because we've been asked that question, why is this happening and not happening? It's inappropriate to discuss with anyone whatever disciplinary actions are being taken place. It will not happen. It should not happen. And no one's on a mission from God to do that and take care of that. Second place, bullying. I believe that over the last year as board president, I have remained silent on a lot of issues. If you ask any of the board members here, they've probably received about 5 emails from me all in a year. One of the reasons that I've done that is because I believe that our superintendent is responsible to answer questions, and when our board members want to participate in the process, they have to step forward. They were elected to ask the proper questions, to seek out answers, to do those things that board members do. They were not hired to be staff. They are not staff members, so it's not their job to do those things. It's the superintendent's job. So in order for us to properly evaluate him, they have to take the initiative, as far as I'm concerned, to ask the right questions, to seek out information. In doing so, I believe that the articles that were written last week, that I thought the one article was accurate and tried to depict the things that took place in the meeting, but I also felt like because of my silence, as Ms. Terza said, you can't win no matter what you do. If you say nothing, people make up things. I feel like I was bullied, in this case by the columnists at the Beacon News, because of my silence. The writer has not taken the time over the last year to ask me how things were going, what my thoughts were. We haven't spoken in over 3 years, as a matter of fact, but I've been called a nemesis. I've been called equally opinionated. I agree with that. I am equally opinionated.
Do I support the superintendent? I do. Will I budge? I have. Will I say to this audience the things that I've said to the superintendent privately? No, I won't. The superintendent knows as well as I know that there are many, many issues, including many of these issues to dealing with the buildings and grounds that I've spoken privately with him about. I'm not going to come out publicly and say anything about the superintendent. And so it's, there was a comment made in the article that we don't show any passion for education. Well, what I will say to you is, there's presentations that take place about education, and we don't see the newspaper columnist is not at those presentations all the time. And so there are things that take place. I'm working with 13 students from Calvert Middle School, students that the school presented to us that said that they had behavioral issues and some other issues going on. I shouldn't have to bring that up, but maybe if someone spoke to me, you could find out that I do some other things in the community, and I have. And my passion may not be here at this seat and in this, on this board, that you're going to see what is it that we're supposed to do when there's an education presentation. You look at the presentation, you ask appropriate questions, and you move on. Same old drama at East Aurora. I say same old drama at the Beacon News. And so why? Because, and that does not, I'm not speaking of Caitlin. I want to be fair in this. And so I made some decisions. I said, well, Ray, you know the election's coming up. You got a lot to lose. I sure do. But I also made up in my mind that I would stand on what I believe in. I'll speak out. I'll play things right down the middle. A lot of people don't like me because of that, because I play things down the middle. Everybody wants me to choose sides and go this way or go that way. I feel like I've been bullied. There were comments at the last meeting. I was quoted as saying that something about scholarships. That was taken out of context. I was talking about how we were saving money. That was not written in that particular article. That taken out of context. I talked about full-day kindergarten. I talked about the need that I would support that. That wasn't put in the article. And so when you say we don't have passion for education, then get the facts together, put them together, and not write sensational articles that I feel like because I haven't said anything. So tonight I decided I'll take the bait. You want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. We'll let the chips fall where they may, and whatever happens with that. The last place is bullying. We see, I was quoted in the column as that I loathe my predecessor. That's the furthest thing from the truth. I don't loathe anyone. That is cruel thing to say, especially when we haven't taken the time to even have a conversation. I don't loathe anyone. I loathe individuals' behavior, their public behavior, their private behavior, and I loathe individuals that make up excuses for adults acting certain ways. And that's what I've heard over the years. I had a good friend of mine say to me, Ray, I loved your comments last week, but I don't know why you went in the direction that you did in some of your comments. Well, another choice that I made. Back in November, I talked about this board expelling students for certain types of behavior. And when I got home that night, I had a text on my phone. So we're going to move to bullying from there to the newspaper. And I just said I loathe behavior. And so when I got home that night, I had a text on my phone. This is cyberbullying. I got home and I had a text that said, Listen to your tape at B&G and then go expel yourself, Minister Hall. By the way, I'm not going to call the employee's name, gave copies to everyone. Maybe I'll play it at the next meeting. That comment was in regards to an argument that I had, a public argument that I had with Ms. Johnson. I believe it was 2011 or 2012. I'm not sure which year it was. And in that comment, in that argument or that dispute, that dispute started out with, my mother was paying taxes when your mother was living in public housing. That's where that started at. One of the things that I said in there was, you can bully other people, but you won't bully me. That argument, or that dispute ended with me saying some things about her mother. That was 3 years ago, but no one's spoken to me and said a word to me about how things are going. When I apologized the following week, there was no article about that. There was a public apology made. There was no argument about that. I sit here at these meetings and if Ms. Perrier, like last week, Ms. Perrier said something to Ms. Johnson, Ms. Johnson responded to me as though I was pulling Ms. Perrier's strings over there. So when I get this text says, go listen, so now I'm going to be bullied. Maybe we'll play the tape. I don't have to play the tape. I just brought up the meeting. Now, so we're going to open up an old wound. Same old school district. My response to that was, if children live with criticism, they learn to condemn. If they live with hostility, they learn to fight. I didn't make that up. That's a writer, Mrs. Nolte, that wrote a poem called Children Live What They Learn. I didn't make that up. There's nothing scientific about it. The response I got back was, yeah, that must be true about your mama too. Review your tape. It's all over town how you treat your wife. You don't fool anyone, not even the small group at the school. I loathe that type of behavior. It makes no sense whatsoever. This is scratching the surface of the type of bullying that takes place. Cyberbullying all the time. I have so many more of these that take place. But I get accused of wrongful things. And so I'm putting myself out on my political, quote, political career on the line because I have more to lose. But I feel much better. I tell you what, I've lost a lot of sleep over the years, over this, being on this board. It's been a many nights I've woke up 3 or 4 in the morning, couldn't get back to sleep. You take a lot of abuse from a lot of people. That's okay. I'm just saying, if you're going to psychoanalyze me, if you're going to stand up and criticize our processes, then let's be diligent and be fair about how we go about making these assertions towards this board. We are moving forward. Our board has made comments about the purchasing. It just says, well, we didn't have a purchasing agent, and that's why a lot of these things were taking place. Well, my response to that is, we were still purchasing, and so we should have had a purchasing agent. That's what the response was, my response. For 3 years we went without having a purchasing agent. And some of these things that we're talking about that were taking place would not have taken place. I don't care if we had a new system in place or not. It didn't matter. These things could have been taken care of. And so now my request is that, I'm going to conclude with this. I'm not going to be bullied by anyone. It's not that important to me to be on this board to allow anyone to bully me, bully our staff at the district. It's inappropriate. We've had staff members, our board secretary here to my right, she's going to be mad at me, been brought to tears by a board member, And instead, the newspapers continually, they don't come and ask me anything. They go and talk to the bully. And what does the bully usually say? I didn't do nothing. That's what they typically do. And then that gets printed. So those are my comments for tonight. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Secretary, call the roll.
Gonzalez?
Are you going to allow any questions before?
Absolutely. Any questions?
No, I have a comment.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'm not going to vote for this consent agenda because of the personnel report, an item on there, and also the, I think the vendor's report is also on there.
No, but we're doing the executive session.
No, just the,
Basically because of the, so I'm going to vote no on that.
Wait,
Okay.
did you say the consensus? Isn't the consensus has to do with the executive session?
Pardon?
no.
No?
Just a
Okay. Okay, am I supposed to vote already?
This is on the consent agenda,
Okay, yes.
not the action items. He was asking about the action items as well.
Okay,
Gonzalez?
yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes.
Leonard?
No.
Johnson?
No.
Terza?
Yes.
Create? Yes.
We have action items. Motion to approve.
Discussion items.
Oh, we got discussion item. There we go. I'm sorry. Phillips Park Tennis Courts Intergovernment Agreement. Thank you. Who's first? Who's taking the lead? Okay.
Good evening, Board President, board members. In your packet, I provided you an information memo regarding the tennis courts and the intergovernmental agreement that we have with the City of Aurora and the Fox Valley Park District regarding the tennis courts. The tennis courts, as Mrs. Scully spoke about, are in dire need of repair, major repair. And over the years since 2012, I have provided information to both B&G and the Finance Committee regarding the need to repair these here. If you were to look at them, their safety issue will cause a major hazard, injuries to kids. When you look at them, they're also deplorable. They're not the best playing conditions of the tennis courts. We, right now, the current intergovernmental agreement was signed back in 1992, which expired 2002. Therefore, a new agreement must be made. But also within that agreement that needs to be made, we also have included the tennis courts and to replace the current tennis courts. The tennis courts that we currently have are over 40 years old, give or take. The last time we repaired their major repair was over 20 years ago. So you can see right now that we definitely need new tennis courts. We have Fabian here who plays on the team, and he can tell you firsthand exactly what conditions there are. Now, in the agreement in itself, it details exactly what the district is responsible for, what the City of Aurora is responsible for, as well as the Fox Valley Park District. Bringing these individuals to the table has been not a daunting task, but it's a time-consuming because you're talking about three large entities here. And of all three entities, District 131 uses the tennis courts more than anyone else. We use it for the tennis teams, both boys and girls, and we use it for physical education. The Fox Valley Park District only uses the tennis courts during the month of June and July for the tennis programs. And then, of course, for the city, our constituents, they use it when it's free, typically after hours. So with that said, if you look at the information that I have provided you, are asking that dollars be secured for the fiscal period 2015, is it 2015, 2016, 17, in order for us to be able to construct new tennis courts. A part of the information that you have indicated that the tennis courts, or at least in the agreement between the three entities, is that each one will put up to $200,000 and not to exceed $600,000. And therefore, if somebody wants to do a little bit more, that's on us. But I could spell everything out for you exactly what that would entail.
And this work will be done
The work will start July 2015 of this year. I've already spoken with Mr. Dennis Renner, the AD at the high school, indicating that probably the girls' tennis team may be relocated for practices and/or competition as well. It all depends exactly how far, and of course, depending on the weather itself.
So is the town contributing part of it then?
Yes.
The city, the park district?
That's correct.
And so each one of us, 200.
Each 200, correct.
And it would be next year's budget.
That is correct. We did currently have, we did budget $200,000 for this fiscal period, but again, because working with the entities, and I believe I'm the first one to present to the board. I believe both the city of Aurora and the Fox Valley Park District will be doing the same presentations to their boards as well. But at least to guarantee the $200,000, at least we can move forward. Okay? Any further questions?
So how do we get it done and not pay for it? For a year.
Well, no, the thing is
July will start 15.
that's right, yeah. And the bills will start coming after that.
Okay.
I mean, it would seem to me that the choice is either we fund it or we shut down our tennis team, because they cannot, it's dangerous, it's not, we can't continue to have them, and I don't think that's a viable, I'm not suggesting that that's what we should do, but if we're going to continue to support the tennis program, it seems as
That
though
is correct.
this has
And
to be
to
done.
also bring the Fox Valley Park District as a partner, originally, the intergovernmental agreement was the utilization, the one that we had before, and that the city and the school would maintain it, do the maintenance of it. But to bring the Fox Valley Park District for them to commit $200,000 is a major task in itself. Any further questions? Thank you very much.
So we'll have this as an action item on?
Yes, so exactly. For the July 17th board meeting.
February.
February, thank you. I say?
You said July.
No, not July. No, not July. For the February 17th, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For the sake of time, I won't go line by line, but I am going to highlight some particular things in the budgets. And as I get started, I need my eyes to adjust, I apologize. A couple of things that I just want to make sure that everybody is clear about. These budgets here are not budgets that were necessarily broken out in this manner in years past. With our new finance assistant soup, we decided to break out certain budgets so that they didn't fall under just curriculum or under elementary and secondary, and I already did curriculum, so you all kind of know about that. So that's one thing I want to make sure that I point out to you, that all of these budgets are, the way they're being broken out is new for this year. Another thing I want to make sure that the board is aware of is the process for developing the budgets. Basically, all of these budgets are staff that fall underneath my umbrella as assistant superintendent. And so what I ask the directors to do is I give them a template, and they break out what they want for their department or what they find that we need for students according to their department. And then I sit with them and I review that. And then I also look at it and say, okay, what are allowable expenses under grant funding? So whether that's 1, 2, 3, if there's another grant on the horizon, then I break out those pieces on their separate worksheet that I have them do for me as their supervisor, to make sure, first of all, that all of the costs are appropriate, make sure that we don't have overlapping costs between departments, and then again, anything that's an allowable expense for a grant, that we push it in that direction and don't incur it as a district expense. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew that there's a whole process that happens before this even comes to fruition. The other thing that's a little bit tricky is our district budgets are due before our grant budgets are due. So there are things that maybe are built into the district budget, not knowing for sure if there will be sufficient grant monies to pick up those costs. And so some of those things I'll note out to you, as far as these are some things that have been slid over. And you'll hear me say a couple of times throughout the presentation today that I don't anticipate that we will spend all of these funds. And the reason being is because there were allowable expenses that we were able to put into the grants. And that's not something we would have known beforehand, because we don't always know exactly how much money we're going to get when we're doing district budgets in comparison to grant budgets. Everybody follow that? Okay. Sorry, I felt like I went a little, probably too in-depth on that one, but just so you know. Okay, so we're going to start with the school improvement budget, and as I just said, I'm not going to go line by line, but I am going to point out a couple of things to you. And then once I do that, then if you have a question about this particular budget, then we'll do it kind of each budget by each budget. So one thing I want to point out to you is if you compared this budget to what's on the website, you'll notice that there was a $10,000 increase. I have my little hand here showing that. This originally said $25,000. We upped it to $35,000. And the reason for that was a decision was made by the administration in conjunction with the union that joint committees, which were previously held during the contractual day, that we were going to bump those to after school, so that the teachers that are part of those committees wouldn't have to miss their classes, but that we would pay those people for their time outside of the contract. So we increased the amount of money in that line to be able to accommodate for those joint committees, in addition to the other budgeted meetings after the contract hours for our teaching staff. So that was one thing I wanted to point out to you. And then I also wanted to point out this particular line here on non-capitalized equipment. Most likely this money is not going to be spent, as that is one of the items that I was able to put in Title I because it's a supplemental piece. So David Brusack wanted to buy iPads for Lexia, which is a new program, which actually you see here, the license for that, which is part of an ELA intervention. And so that 24,800 most likely will not be spent unless we find some other cost that we didn't anticipate or something else that he needs that funding for. But those iPads have already been purchased out of title funds for that. Those were the main things I wanted to point out. You'll notice on every grant there's a district mileage line, which was a new piece that Christy put in. And that was not, again, where you see the notation in red, that's because it wasn't part of the budget that was posted online. And I don't know if there's questions about the mileage. I think that Christy wanted to kind of track it by department. I don't know if you want to say more, Christy.
Well, actually, that's in my budget, so that's something that I presented when I presented the findings. And what we did was I budgeted for the whole district, so that 30,000, you'll see that on each of these sheets. And we gave each department access to it so they can enter the recs themselves. So that's why you'll see it 3 times, but it's really only 130,000.
And what is the big mileage that they're?
This one would be, Dave traveling between buildings.
It's not to and from work, it's with.
No.
I mean, I
No,
looked
to
at
and from
$30,000
buildings.
bucks, I said, somebody's going somewhere.
And
So
then,
it's just,
Conferences, things like that.
Right.
It's when you're using your vehicle to go outside the district.
okay, or within the district.
so
Okay.
this would be though for Dave, it would also be for the RTI facilitator and the RTI and PBIS coaches also. Theirs would all hit this particular line because they all fall under his umbrella of school improvement.
And I do see that in the bills, and I always just am kind of curious.
Yeah, that's inter-district travel. Any other questions about this budget? Okay. Next budget, the bilingual budget. So same holds true as far as, this budget was due before the grant budgets that also support bilingual, so just kind of keep that in mind. One of the things that I'll point out, we have here certified staff, other work, not an original budget. So this would be for curriculum writing, or for other staff responsibilities or things that we would need teachers for that fall outside of the contract that we would maybe ask them for. The majority of it would be for curriculum writing that's specific to our bilingual students to go hand in hand with the gen ed curriculum writing. And then this one here on the bilingual supplies, you'll notice that very little has been spent from there. One of the things that we did after budgets were submitted with Dr. Pop's request of us was to make sure that we're limiting the amount of supplies, meeting supplies costs that we were having. In the past, we would give, if we had a 2-hour meeting after school, we might do water and snacks, like a little bag of chips or something for staff participating. And we decided to eliminate the snacks, and so all the meeting, most of the meetings now only have water, unless they're a lengthier meeting. Then you may see some other snack or something like that. So part of this would have been budgeting to account for some of that, not all of that, but some of that. And then also a reduction in terms of, again, we were able to put some supplies that are for teachers and for students of our bilingual program. We put some in Title I, which is in the past, we only used bilingual funds typically for our bilingual students, but Title I actually covers all of our students, and so some of those things that might be specific to a bilingual classroom are now also put in Title I, whereas in the past, we might not have used our title funds that way. Okay? So this is one of those lines that I anticipate we would not be using the full amount on. And then the other one I just wanted to point out is here you'll see one specific bilingual assessment materials, and you may wonder why that falls there and not somewhere else. That is part of our e-assessments, the way that we assess our English language learners to make sure that they are growing. We have access, which is our state mandated test, but in terms of our local measurement of that, we have that goes hand in hand with our ESL curriculum and e-assessments, and that is the cost of that particular testing software. Those were the only two items that I really wanted to highlight on bilingual. Are there any questions about any of the other lines that I can address for you? Nope. Okay. Professional development. I apologize, my eyes are like tired and it's dark, and I'm sorry, I apologize. It took me a second to refocus. So here again, if you look at this first line, you'll see that there's some stipends. This would be for staff that attend PD. I would anticipate that we would not utilize all of those funds. Again, part of the reason is one of the main changes with Title II, which usually covers professional development, a major change this year from previous years was this year we did not put any class size reduction staff into Title II. If we ever have, come September we find, oh, we need additional staff, that is an allowable expense that you can put into Title II. This year we did not have the need for any class size reduction staff, so that was, about 80 grand plus that did not have to come out of Title II that previously came out of Title II. So we had then more money to have for stipends for teachers that attended things outside of their contract, as well as Title I with the changes of not having to set aside SES and choice monies. A little bit of that money also went into providing for professional development because we knew that that was a larger cost that we had. So just kind of looking at the big picture and trying to figure out what was the best way to utilize money. So again, this line is not one that I anticipate that we will use all of. And the same for the consulting, exact same rationale. Okay, additional monies were we were able to put into the grants to cover that. And then the materials, again, similar rationale as I gave for bilingual, as we looked at trying to cut costs on meetings and keeping it more of we're just providing water and we're not providing any additional snacks, so that we were able to cut a lot of costs, because we have a lot of professional development. As you heard at the 5 o'clock meeting, there's a lot of sessions that take place with a lot of staff. So that was some cuts that we were able to make, as well as just other materials that maybe we had incurred previous years, as far as books and some of the initiatives that we started last year that would not carry to this year, because our staff already have those books, those professional development reference books. Okay? Those were the things I wanted to highlight on this budget. Are there any questions about this budget that I didn't address? Nope. Okay. All right. Now for the alternative education, which I know is where I got the most questions, and I did make some adjustments. And so you'll see those in just a moment. And I'm trying to refocus my eyes again. Every time I go to look up and look down, my eyes get...
Do you need one set of lights on?
No, I'm going to wrap this up really soon here, Mr. Hall, at least my part of it.
You have all the questions on this one.
Come on now, work with me. Okay, so the first part of it is this year's staffing costs for alternative education, whether they are housed at East High or housed at the Extension campus. And so these were the staffing numbers. One thing that I want to bring to your attention, which I'm sure many of you noticed, was the second page. So we have just kind of the various positions and what the salary pieces are on those positions. As we look at the second page of this, I noted out for the board so that you could see some of the changes that we've done different for funding. So the most notable change with the funding is this line here with the amount that we put into Title I funding. So where that is hitting is those choice teachers, the credit recovery teachers in 149 that Ms. Gonzalez talked about earlier. 3 of those teachers, because they were brand new positions, so it's an allowable expense for us to put into our grant, we put into our Title I funds as part of East Aurora High School's Title I allocation. And then you'll see then the monies that we get from the TAP grant here, monies that we get from RSSP, and one salary that we're charging to IDEA. You'll notice these numbers are just kind of flat numbers we get for those grants, so they don't necessarily equate with salaries, because that's not always how the grants work. So I just kind of put those flat numbers in so you can see kind of how we're funding this particular, our alternative ed this year. So that takes us to the grand total of 1.182,158 there. And then I also split out for you, because I know there's a lot of questions about the Extension campus versus choice. Not everything is cut and dry, right, as that, because we have a lot of staff that are splitting between the locations. So I did give you here staff that are straight at the Extension, don't go back and forth to East Aurora, and then the opposite of that, the staff that are only housed at choice and are not coming to the Extension campus. And then we have a pretty significant amount, you can see, of a dollar amount of staff that are kind of going back and forth between the 2 campuses. And so I wanted you to be able to see that, but know that there's not this direct split right down the middle, because we're trying to utilize our staff to the full capacity as much as we can, as far as in both areas when we're able to for certain positions. And on that previous page, I do have it noted for those of you that are interested and who is split between campuses. If you look at this page here, you see here, this is noted Extension and choice. So any of those that are noted that way are the staff that are split between the campuses. Any questions about this spread before I move to the next spread?
So, some of these people on your big sheet.
Yeah.
Now, they were employed the year before by the district?
The next spreads that I have for you, based on the questions that I got from the board, are going to help you draw those. What I want to emphasize before I give those spreads, which is why Matt is holding them until I cue him, is that it's really important to keep in mind that it's not an apples to apples, because what we were doing in-house and what we were asking the Urban League to do for us is not the same thing as that we're doing this year. So you'll see the dollar amounts that we spent, but it's not a one-to-one staff piece. So you can't say, here's this staff member and here's this staff member, because we did different positions and we have new programming. So you can look at the overall dollar amount, but it's going to be very difficult to do a parallel staff to staff. We did make an attempt to do that because I know that that was something, and it's extremely messy because we have that situation just like we have. See, this is just what we're in control of, and you see that it's split between campuses, so it's not as clear cut. So imagine that then we're talking about us and Quad, and there still was some crossover. So we tried to quantify some of that, and I have a spread for you on that, but I want for everybody to be very clear. We're not doing the same thing that we asked Quad to do, and so in fairness in looking at all of those dollar amounts, you have to be cognizant that it's different positions and different programming. So Matt, if you would give, Matt's going to hand out 2 sheets for you. One of them looks like this one that I gave to you previously, but I added on the rent, and Matt has it here for you. I added on the rent, and I added on estimate for utilities. And again, that's an estimate, right? And it's based on the 12 months. So for the alternative ed budget, all of that first part, that 410, there were no changes from the one that you got in your board packet, okay? All of that is the same. The pieces that are new, and the reason I'm giving you a hard copy, is that I added on the rent. So you see there for a total of 367. Is everybody with me? Okay. And then an estimate on the utilities, which is the 22,800. And again, that's an estimate. So for this year's budget, the grand total, if we look at our alternative ed budget with the 410, and we look at our staffing total, and we look at what we're paying in rent and what we're paying in utilities, the grand total is the 1.9. Is everybody with me? Okay. And if you look down here, and I apologize, when we had a change in one of the salaries, and so yours is crossed out and looks different than mine. I apologize about that, but I'll get you a clean copy. I'll have Lisa send you this clean copy. So because I know we want to compare how much we spent for alternative education last year and how much we spent this year. If we're looking at just dollar for dollar, total this year, like I said, we're at this 1.983, and last year total we were at 1.959. You'll see here that I subtracted out this 410 because nowhere in the numbers that I calculated for you for last year are all of these a one-to-one calculation, okay? And in particular, I want to draw your attention to this budget. If you'll look with me here, where it says court-ordered tuition, this 200,000, that's a pretty heavy amount that comes from that 410. Is everybody with me?
Yep.
Okay. So that previously was not, again, we didn't have an alternative ed budget per se. We had our quad contract, and then we had monies that we pulled from various sources to cover whatever on our side, right? So this is a huge piece of that 410. The other thing I want to draw your attention to is the other very large dollar amount, which is this 115. This 115 is the majority of it is for the grant consultant. So we have currently a grant coordinator on our staff, but we also have Gloria Hunter, which you all know we have utilized, different times throughout the years because she's very experienced and very good at getting grants. So in anticipation that we may still need to use her as we're trying to look for funding for a variety of different reasons, we had built that money for her consultant fees into the alternative ed budget because we had estimated it could be as high as $90,000, and so we wanted to make sure that we accounted for those monies somewhere. So those are the 2 largest numbers that fall into this particular budget for this 410. So I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that piece to you. Before I go on to the staffing kind of estimate costs for last year that we tried to recreate for you based on questions and concerns from the board, comments or questions about this spread that you have in your hand? No? Okay. So if we look at last year's, you'll notice on some of these positions here, I have little asterisks. Do you all see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So those asterisks indicate that that is an estimate. So we tried to, because we were asked to kind of estimate staff that was on our payroll that maybe we used for alternative ed in some form or fashion, whether it was our own or to support quad. So again, there's not this cut and dry of this person supported quad this much. These are people who supported alternative ed, even though their role, their title didn't specifically say that. So, and then we tried to quantify based on what some of the board members had asked to quantify that, how much time different people spent on anything regarding alternative ed. So you'll see there, some of them have asterisks, not all of them. If the ones that do not have asterisks are ones that were purely alternative ed, whether it's a full salary FTE or stipends. So these first few here, you see we try to quantify how much of time of this particular staff was for to do something for alternative education, whether it was in district or supporting quad. You'll see here, these are just some straight salaries, and so some of these are the same ones that we have for this year. Not all of them, but some of them. So the TAP would be an example, right? Those are two salaries that we still have in this year's budget. And then you'll see again some more staff here. And then here again where we're trying to quantify portions of these people's time that were used for alternative education. Where you see these RSSPs, these are stipends that were paid for staff that were doing the RSSP outside of contractual hours at the high school, because that's how we used to have it, if you remember, that there was some of that at the high school. So this is the pieces that were still at the high school. And then we have the e-learning night school, again, that was at East High. And then you'll see that we tried to quantify some of the deans and their work in supporting alternative education. And so I made some notes because each dean, some of the deans were assigned particular things. So an example is this particular dean was also responsible for night school registration. So that dean collected paperwork and got kids registered for night school. This particular dean was checking in the RSSP kids when they came to the high school. So at the tail end of her work day, when the kids started arriving, she would greet them, make sure that they were weapon-free and, not having things that they should not have on them. And so she did part of that. This particular dean helped with Pride, which again was a program that we had at the high school during the instructional day, and so part of her time was identifying kids for that, monitoring those kids of that program. This dean was one that just helped with, if we had, this is one of our bilingual speaking deans, and so if we had to have a parent meeting or something like that and we needed a bilingual speaker, so we try to quantify his amount of time that he spent for that. And then our dean that did alternative ed placement kind of in general, kind of the person that was like the point of contact to say this child will stay at East High in an alternative program, or this child needs to go to Quad County because there's not something that we're going to handle here in-house. And so that's kind of how those were broken out. So if you look here at the bottom, again, trying to give you some type of parallel, because I know that there was a lot of questions about last year versus this year. So trying to give you some kind of parallel, you see here 131 alternative ed staffing costs at $468,000. This is the number that I just pulled right off of the quad contract. And so then for our grand total of a 1.959, which again, if you look at the previous one here at the bottom, I plugged that number here for you to be able to try and draw a comparison, even though, there's differences of programs and staff. Questions that I can answer, or try and answer?
That's clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Yeah, that was
clear.
I'm looking at Mr. Hull because he looks like he's got something he wants to say.
I'm as tired as you are.
Does that help a little bit? I know, we're trying to get, yeah, okay.
I'll study it.
Okay. I will send these new ones to Lisa so that she can forward them to you so that you have the clean copies. And the only other thing that we had was we had given you the course completion. That was another request that was made from a previous presentation by Michelle. And again, I won't go line by line, but are there questions about this that either I or Michelle can answer for you? Do you want me to explain it, or it was in the on the agenda, Lisa? It falls where on the agenda? Under
It's right before adjournment, Mr. Leonard. It's under informational items.
Informational items.
Oh, okay. Yeah, courses completed, it's called, right before the adjournment tab.
I can talk you through it if you want, or if you just want, if you have questions, we can answer them. Everybody's tired, I get that. No?
Thank you.
Pretty self-explanatory.
All right. Thank you.
Así va como a
Like-
200. Vamos a página 200. Right, she said.
I don't even know where we are now.
On to our action items. A motion to approve extending the items that were originally awarded three-year contract as part of the 2012-13 janitorial supply bid to Valdez Enterprises and Mayfair Hotel Supply Company.
So move.
Second.
It's been motion and second. Any questions? Secretary, call the roll.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Leonard?
No.
Rie?
Yes.
Terza?
Yes.
Hall?
Yes. Motion to approve the following pre-qualified vendors.
Mr. Hull, I believe that I sent the board an email asking to table this until we could get some clarification and some procedures, so we wouldn't be back at the same boat that we've been in with pre-qualified or preferred vendors.
Wouldn't that come after we have a
Um,
discussion and then vote it down and vote to table or
Well,
whatever?
I guess we should have a
We
discussion
should
on
have a
voting to
discussion.
table.
We should second it and then have a discussion, shouldn't we?
Any other questions or comments?
Well, I agree with Annette. I
Yeah.
think we should table it.
Yeah.
and,
Absolutely.
Get
So
it
We have to,
more clarified.
it's been motioned and second, we have to take a vote.
It hasn't been.
No, it has not been,
Has been second.
no has been even motion.
No, there's no motion on the
No
table.
motion or second.
We don't.
We did the first one, not that one. I agree with,
On the,
We have to vote the first motion down, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah,
we'll
let's vote the first
make
Yeah.
a new
Right.
motion.
So we need to,
we,
you asked for a motion, I'll say so moved.
as I
Right.
said,
Start again.
no, let me, am I going nuts here? How did we get to the comment if I didn't ask for a motion to begin with? We just,
did he,
Nobody seconded.
oh, nobody seconded. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's start over. Is there a motion to approve the following pre-qualified vendors?
So moved.
Second.
It's been motioned and second. We've had comments. Secretary, call the roll.
Gonzalez?
No, now we want,
no? We
Say
don't
no.
want,
let's have our,
Huh?
They say no.
do we say no?
Call the roll, please.
Gonzalez?
No.
Hall?
No.
Strand?
No.
Leonard?
No.
Rie?
no.
Johnson?
No.
Terza?
No.
Now, I would like to ask a question, may I? Is that all right?
About this?
I just want to, yeah, when are we going to have this discussion?
We could have had it before we voted, but go ahead.
Well, pre-qualified was not limiting, right? This was not a limiting situation.
That's correct. We're
away from preferred
Pre-preferred.
vendors and putting on a pre-qualified. So this is, the list that we presented today were just the vendors that we went through the vetting process with. We have a lot who also submitted qualification RFQs, but we haven't been able to reach some of their preferences and things like that.
So, for instance, the gentleman who
Olson
spoke
Griffin.
tonight, they can, so this does not limit us to who we
Correct.
call, nor does it limit how many people are going to be on it, but
Yes.
there is a process.
Right, and these are just the ones that we got through so far.
But there's still, as Ms. Johnson said, there's still some procedures that would be helpful probably to have in, okay.
Do you have those procedures yet, or
We're in the process of making them, so some of them.
when you
have-
get everything together,
Yeah,
then present it?
Yes.
You know,
So that
not
means, though,
piecemeal.
that we would then stay on
Yeah.
the preferred vendor.
Pre-qualified vendor. Oh,
Pre-qualified.
Yeah, they've
If
changed
we
their
don't
terms,
vote it
yeah.
in, we stay with the preferred vendors, right?
Until we vote again.
If we approved this tonight, we would have moved to this?
well, when you voted on the preferred vendors, you voted it as a 1 year.
And when is the year?
Pardon?
What was the year?
I
Oh.
think it was April of 13.
It's
Ah.
up.
So right now, we have no preferred vendors, really.
Okay.
Okay, let's keep
The
our.
definition of qualified, someone put together an RFQ, is it possible we can see what was asked and
And that was that
We
big
did,
spreadsheet.
the big
that we
spreadsheet
had.
last time.
So we asked
Yeah.
for their EMR rating, we asked for,
I mean, but what, all we saw were hourly rates on this.
those hourly rates were just pulled from that spreadsheet. So we can supply that spreadsheet again. Like, I think it was it last one or the one before that?
And it did include additional costs that were associated, if I remember right, or no?
All they put on there was hourly rates for different categories of workers, so,
Painters, electricians.
I'm sorry.
Journeyman.
Apprentice,
Mhm.
yes, journeyman, things like that, yes. And so another question was why only one why only one electrician? Again, that's because that's all we've been able to vet so far. We're having some trouble getting.
We're actually looking to expand the list
Yes.
as opposed
Yes.
to
Yes.
shrink the
This is
list.
just the first wave that we got through. With all the questions, yeah.
Okay.
Can we put together a complete package, please? Motion to approve displaying the proposed social studies curriculum for 30 days.
So move.
Second?
Moved and second. Any questions? Secretary, call the roll, please.
Create,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Tirzan,
Yes.
Motion to approve the curriculum adoption proposal for social studies as follows. Elementary, $550,749.85. Middle schools, $151,408.85. High school, $8,580. Summer curriculum writing, $27,540.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? Secretary, call the roll.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Tirzan,
Yes.
Create,
Yes.
Is there a motion to convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing employment, specific employee?
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and second. Secretary, call the roll.
Hall,
Yes.
Create,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Leonard,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Gonzalez,
Yes.
Tirzan.
Yes.
There will not be any action following the executive session. Executive session?
Second.
Been moved and second. Secretary, call the roll.
Hall,
Yes.
Create,
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Johnson, Leonard,
Absent.
Tirzan,
Yes.
Say over.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Wait.
Motion to adjourn been moved and second. Call the roll.
Leonard? Absent Terza?
Yes.
Johnson, absent Strand? Yes. Brier? Yes. Gonzalez?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you think about making that just, I know we talked about this, when
I
you
think
close a meeting,
the
can
last
you
one,
do
all those